So we got a new poll from the New York Times. It shows that Donald Trump is winning. Kamala Harris's post-convention bump never emerged. And now she's actually sinking, causing panic. The debate is tomorrow night. I don't think anyone who's being honest expects Kamala Harris to be able to go toe-to-toe with Donald Trump. This guy is made for TV. I mean, he is a reality TV star because he knows how to do the whole thing, but he has been trying to downplay it a little bit. That being said, Kamala Harris has not won any debate she's been in at the presidential level. She's tried several times. It's not really worked out for her, so it's going to be interesting. Aside from the New York Times, Nate Silver's forecast for Trump just keeps going up. It's near 65% chance to win as of right now. So we'll see how things play out at tomorrow's debate. Kamala Harris needs to get a tremendous victory in order to beat Donald Trump. And her staff is now saying she's handcuffed by the rules that Joe Biden's team put in place. That's right. She wanted the microphones on. So we're going to talk about all that, but I know what y'all really want to hear about. The big trending story that's been going absolutely wild, of course, is Haitian migrants allegedly eating pets. And I don't know that it's true, but there are stories of Haitian migrants grabbing pond ducks and consuming them. And so the media is jumping on the story saying, no, Haitian migrants are not eating pets. However, there is reporting that not just Haitian migrants, but migrants in general have been hunting park fowl. I don't know if that's the right word, but, birds in the park. So we'll talk about that, my friends. Before we get started, head over to castbrew.com and buy some Cast Brew coffee. We got a bunch of different flavors and blends. Cast Brew is our coffee company, and I got to tell you, it makes me very emotional. There are only 38 bags left of the Mr. Bocus Pumpkin Spice Experience. Mr. Bocus, of course, was our cat, and we expected him to be a mascot for a long time, but he passed on. And so we decided to end the Mr. Bocus Pumpkin Spice because it didn't feel right. There's 146 bags of the whole bean, but only 38 bags of the ground coffee left, after which we'll be launching a memoriam focused with Mr. Bocus. So he will have we will never abandon him, but that product is, that's it. Head over to timcast.com, click join us or sign up to become a member and support our work directly. As a member, you get access to our members only uncensored show where you as a member can call in. First, you submit a question, then you could call in, ask the question, join us and our guest on the after show at 10 p.m. Monday through Thursday. And as a member, you make this all possible. We are principally funded through memberships. So we do have sponsorships periodically. Memberships really drive everything, and we greatly appreciate your support. Now more than ever, we do need your support because let's just say there's a lot of things happening. Let me just say we're 57 days from the election, and I can only imagine it's going to get wild. Already there's been a lot of news, and I'm not going to get into great detail because we're currently talking with my legal team on issues related to defamation and things of such, but should be exciting when we have an update for you there. Smash the like button, subscribe to this channel, share the show with your friends. Joining us tonight to talk about this and so much more is Raheem Kassam.
Hello, thank you for having me.
Who are you? What do you do?
Well, again, thanks for having me, Tim and team. It's my first time out here. I am the editor-in-chief of a website called The National Pulse. I am probably best known for having been Nigel Farage's chief of staff during the run-up to Brexit. So we did that and went over this past summer and helped him. He's now in Parliament. So there's plenty going on across the pond as well. I have been probably Steve Bannon's longest-running political advisor / friend, and he's in jail, so it tells you how good I do. Great advice. And I've written a couple of books, No-Go Zones, which is about migrant-dominated neighborhoods, specifically Muslim migrant-dominated neighborhoods in Europe. And I would probably be remiss without mentioning my good friends at the New York Young Republican Club as well, where I sit on their advisory board and help, and we're doing their big gala again at the end of this year. So yeah, very, very busy boy. I've been in D.C. for the last 10 years, plying my political trade, and I'm ready for it to be over, frankly.
Right on. Well, thanks for hanging out. Should be fun. Elad is here.
What's up, everybody? My name is Elad Eliyahu. I am a field reporter here at Timcast News. Raheem, looking forward to our chat. Hannah Claire,
it's great.
Up?
It's great to have you both here. I'm Hannah Claire Brimlow. I'm a writer for SCNR.com at Scanner News. Check out their work at Timcast News on the internet. Let's get started.
Here's the big story from the New York Times. This one's got everybody pissed off in corporate press because they don't like Donald Trump. Trump and Harris neck and neck after summer upheaval, Times Siena poll finds. You've got Donald Trump actually beating Kamala Harris in the latest poll. This is updated today, published yesterday from the New York Times, and this is supposed to be one of the good ones. Now, I'll admit, it's just one poll, but the crosstabs are actually really, really interesting. Do you consider yourself a Democrat, Republican, or independent, or a member of another party? Take a look at this, 18 to 29. Only 26% say Democrat, 31% say Republican, 34% say independent. Democrats are losing the youth vote. Not that it's very large, but this is big because young people famously, historically, were always Democrat. But take a look at this. The largest block is 65 plus. Republicans, similarly, and interestingly, 30 to 44-year-olds are not Republicans, but independent is the largest group among 18 to 29-year-olds. This says a lot. The corporate press, this is what I find really funny about this, and you guys can tell me why this may be or why you think it is. So when a poll comes out from ABC, WAPO, or whatever, and it favors Kamala Harris, they just say, here's the poll. When it comes out and favors Trump, they go, oh, well, you need to understand. I mean, it's probably not really a big deal. It's like Trump's not really winning. There's a reason why it looks this way. They immediately panic and start acting like it shouldn't be happening, and they're upset with their own results.
Well, yeah, because they don't want it to be Trump. I mean, one of the interesting things that the Harris campaign has had to grapple with was initial favoritism in the media. There was this big, bold, oh, she's surging in the polls and she's going to catch Trump. And now they sort of don't want expectations to be particularly high for her. They want to remain in this position where they only have to attack Donald Trump and they never have to say, oh, she will follow through. I mean, how can you explain that someone is leading in the polls when they hadn't released a policy until, 24 hours ago, today?
What I'm curious about on the other crosstab with the youth vote, where it was 18 to 29, 26 for the Democrats. Do you think that's because they are too progressive or not progressive enough for younger people that number is?
I think it's both. I think they're a pretty divided age group.
I think it is fair to point out that this seems strange. Among Democrat gender, 23% said men, 39% said woman.
Oh, yeah.
The versus the independent.
Yeah.
35% men to 24% women.
Yeah.
I think we're seeing an exacerbation of the gender divide, too, with more men becoming Republican and more women becoming Democrat. Obviously based on abortion, but some other issues, too. We're seeing that divide larger than it's ever been.
Man, women are overwhelmingly Democrat. And I just think that's very interesting.
Well, it makes sense because women care about abortion.
No, I just saw the movie Twisters, okay? I'm going to tell you exactly what's going on. Have you guys seen the movie Twisters?
I have not.
It's actually really good. I actually really enjoyed it. We need to bring back movies like Twisters, okay? I saw Beetlejuice, and I was like, what is this? It's 5 stories strung together, and it doesn't quite make sense. It's fun to watch Beetlejuice. We all remember 1988. Good times. Well, not everybody was alive then. How were you guys alive in 88?
No.
You weren't?
I don't know what you're talking
I mean, I was
about.
2 anyway. You've never seen Beetlejuice?
No.
Okay, anyway, here's my point. In Twisters...
I have. I get it.
Okay.
I was 2 as well.
Well, we're getting a weird buzzing thing. I don't know what that is. Yeah, it's like fading in and out. Maybe, I think it's your phone, actually. Yep. Maybe not. I don't know. Anyway, hear me out on the Twisters thing. So I'm watching Twisters the other day, and the main character is this woman, and there's a big tornado, and there's this guy who's driving with her, and they're trying to triangulate radar data on a tornado to learn more about tornadoes. This data could save, it can help forecast models, it can predict tornadoes better, and it can help people get out of the way and save lives. So they get the data. The tornado scoops up one of their radars and flings it. And after the tornado clears, the guy's like, we got to go get the GPS so we can get this data. And the woman goes, no, the tornado hit a town. People need help. And he's like, we have to get this data. And she says, no, I'm going. And so instead of getting the scientific data that is extremely hard to get, that they risk their lives for, they go give out water bottles in a town. And right away, I was like, this explains Democrat women. And I don't mean that in a mean way, but it does. The woman's immediate reaction was, we have to go help the people. The guy's immediate reaction was, we have to collect the data. The data, it's an interesting philosophical difference between, and I know it's just a movie, but my point is this. You don't know exactly what's going to be happening in that town. You don't know who needs help or what's going to happen. But her concern was the people there and not the science, not the research. The guy was like, we need this data because the data is going to help us in the future, long term and short term. One guy cared more about the object. The woman cared more about the people. And I'm like, right away, that's it. Now, I got to be honest, I'm a guy. I was like, she's insane. She doesn't know if there's anybody in the town who needs help. She doesn't know what help they'll need. She doesn't know if she can help. She might be a burden. It's a disaster economy. Get the GPS. But this is how women vote. And this is why they mostly vote Democrat.
Well, thanks for ruining the movie for me. But I suggest also that the main character in Twister is the tornado, not the woman. That's the main character. That's
You've
what
never even seen it.
I've seen
You don't
Twister. I've not seen Twisters.
Okay,
Oh,
I've seen the
true.
first one.
In Twisters,
none of
there's
them.
just like 12 tornadoes. It's just like they just keep happening.
It's
And
a
then-
family of tornadoes.
But it's funny because randomly in the movie, it's like you hear a TV in the background saying, record amount of tornadoes this year. And it's like, we get it. You made a movie about tornadoes. But anyway, my point is that's the perspective of women. When it comes to policy, they're coming out and saying, guns are bad and they hurt kids. And women are like, we got to ban guns. And guys are like, whoa, 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 whoa. You know, we need to have a conversation about what that's going to do and what'll happen after the fact.
By the way, did you see the clip of Trump talking about mosquitoes when he did the interview with Hannity? Because you're batting one away. Did you see this?
Yeah, that's a
the
fly.
mosquito like flies in front of him. He goes, and we don't like those mosquitoes being everywhere. He just like moves into dissing the mosquitoes. I think what you're talking about here is pathos, though, right? And like this is a big pathos election. It's a big pathos election as far as like Kamala is concerned, because that's kind of. I mean, look, we saw the policies come out today. There's not a whole lot in there that we didn't already know. A lot of it is copy and paste from the Biden campaign website, by the way. If you look in the source code, you can see it matches. Like, they've literally copied and pasted it. But pathos is incredibly powerful. And that's why they've been going, like you say, on the abortion stuff. But it's a whole gamut of other things. And it's not the Democrat women, you know, that I particularly think very often, if at all, about, but it is those independent women and where the pathos arguments apply to them.
I think there's something to say, too, about how for a lot of political issues on the presidential level, a lot of the policies they affect your life, but they don't affect your life in an extreme, tangible way, the way an abortion issue for women can. So this is something that mobilizes women a lot more than most issues do for most people, because this affects them more directly than most other political issues.
Which is why it was a genius move to send it back to the States.
I mean, also, there's a lot leading up to this backlash that we're going to see, because Donald Trump, of course, appointed these 3 Supreme Court justices who eventually overturned Roe v. Wade. Women are not forgetting that. And I think we're going to continue to see a divide like this as Democrats continue to be the party of abortion. I cover a lot of Democrat rallies, and this is the top issue that people talk to me about. And women will literally work themselves up into tears, not for wrong reason in some cases, but I'll ask them, what are their top issues? What are they concerned about? They'll tell me like a heartfelt story about how they needed access to abortion and how they heard these, one-off stories about women having to cross state lines to get abortions elsewhere. And for women, this is probably the issue, the number one thing mobilizing Democrats. And Donald Trump, I mean, he's been trying to dispel this for the Democrats in how he's been probably the most pro-choice Republican we've seen in our lifetime.
Well, abortion is definitely the issue that Kamala Harris was willing to sign her name to first, right? I mean, she, as vice president, toured the country. That's where she met Tim Walz at a Planned Parenthood. She was on a pro-abortion, they are trying to steal your rights tour. But that's really what it is. I mean, I think more than anything, abortion is just a trigger word for be scared of men, and especially straight white men in America. That's what they're running on. It's not just about, the abortion as a procedure. It's this hypothesis that if you let the patriarchy continue, they're going to send you back to the kitchen and everything will be awful. I think it's not so much about reproductive rights as it is about this fear mongering that women are particularly susceptible to.
I think women love their abortion rights, if that's what we're going to call them, or I don't know. I don't want to use all the euphemisms.
I think some of them
women
feel
want abortion.
passionately about it.
Women want access to abortion. Yes.
So I think this is an important distinction too, because I'm not a fan of pro-choice or pro-life as terms. Those are political terms that are used like it's a meme basically that represents tribalism. You're either for abortion or against abortion. You're either pro-abortion or anti-abortion. The funny thing is, Democrats don't like being called pro-abortion. Republicans have no problem being called anti-abortion. Or overwhelmingly, there are certainly some anti-abortion Democrats. It's true. Pro-life Democrats have been around for a while, and that's why I wonder if the large play is actually going to be from Trump to try and play like a moderate role on this one. But it's probably just at this point that the hyperpolarization is here, and I'm willing to bet that pro-life Democrats largely don't exist anymore, that they've migrated over already. I don't know if Trump thinks he's going to capture more votes from women by doing this. I think, like most PR lessons, he should say literally nothing.
Yeah.
I do too.
Well, he has said he's against the national abortion ban. I think there is something to be said about how much Democrats are able to raise as a result of the abortion issue.
That's why they want to talk about it.
Some of the biggest. Well, that's why they also don't want to permanently solve it. So they will be able to fundraise on it. NARAL, there's a few of these abortion organizations, but they fundraise the most money of any PAC. So they're some of the biggest fundraisers in our country. And
but if you poll young people, if you poll women, if you poll men, all of them report that the economy is the number one issue.
I think young
followed
women.
by crime and immigration. Young
You're
women.
a Democrat woman.
NBC
You don't care about
just
the
released
economy.
a poll polling men and women about this. Economy is the number one issue. I can't remember which outlet, but one outlet did this article where they were interviewing women in Texas who were, very mad about Texas restrictive laws. And one of them said, I wasn't able to afford to go out of state to get an abortion. She's making an economic argument. All of them think about this all the time. Some women have to make the choice if they're going to get an abortion or not. All women have to decide how they're going to pay for their groceries.
Women would rather be poor than lose their access to abortion.
I think it's a meme. I think women largely. What was it? There was a really funny post over the weekend where someone referenced testosterone level testing that NPR had done, and some of the guys on the show's testosterone levels were like 140 or something, and they pointed out that the levels were so low a doctor would probably consider it an emergency and prescribe you some medication to solve the problem. And these were like NPR guys. Their testosterone was like that of a woman. And there was this, it was like a snippet from a study saying that something like people who have low testosterone seek social acceptance more as a safety mechanism, something like this. And so it could be that it's not necessarily an intentional mechanism where some politician was like, we're going to target women with this kind of stuff. It's that over a long enough period of time, market research says this strategy works on women in this way. The more you do it, you end up with it's filtering. The market research data compiles in a computer. The computer then says, here are the things that resonate with men and resonate with women. And then they start putting money into the things that make sense, especially with keywords. You end up with all the political advertisements targeting specific issues, hitting women because it's a more bang for your buck. And this polarizes men and women politically. Women are only going to get, so I'll use Google as an example. A politician makes a Google ad campaign and they tell the Google AI, I want to target, men and women with this set of ads, 10 ads, and we want to make it the most effective. The AI will start to discover women respond to these 4 ads and men respond to these 6 ads. And the ones that women are responding to are going to be emotionally driven issues, kids, oh no, they're dying because of guns. And then you're going to get a lot of women who are going to be like, that's my issue. Abortion being a big deal. So it's not that you're wrong, Elad. It's what I'm saying is the marketing will invariably just flow in their direction because of algorithmic advertising. And then you're going to end up with women who don't care about abortion, hearing that 24/7 and then just saying, yeah, that's why I'm voting. My friends all said it. It's the meme we have to support.
I think we're moving towards a pro-choice, and it's hard to say because some people are 14-weekers and
pro-abortion.
We're moving towards a pro-abortion consensus, even in the Republican Party. The pro-lifers have the least amount of influence that they've ever had. I think there was a pro-life group who came out frustrated against Trump and said they were going to withhold their vote.
Live action.
But good luck just voting for Kamala Harris or abstaining and then in effect supporting Kamala Harris, who's even more pro-abortion. But in the future, I don't even think there's going to be room for pro-life people in the Republican Party. In 20 years, in 30 years, there just won't
look
be
at it
enough
now.
of them.
The pro-lifers who have been telling Donald Trump, you don't get our votes unless you vote the way we want. And Trump's basically just stayed the course.
He's saying good luck. Yeah. He's giving them the treatment that the Democrats are giving to the Arabs seeking some change in the Democrats' policy on Israel, Gaza. Good luck. Go support the alternative? It's going to be even worse.
Let's jump to this story.
Just to conclude on that real quick, I don't think that's quite right. I mean, those people say those things for a reason. They want an audience, right? They want to get in front of him. They want to make their case. That's why they go out there and do these things and tweet these things and issue these statements. And to some extent, they've been very successful in that. Don't forget, they've been very successful in the sense that they managed to get Trump to a position where he had to choose those Supreme Court justices for that very issue was one of the critical issues that they were grilled on when they were picking those people. So, they have had a level of success. I don't like it, by the way. I think a lot of it is a racket too, especially in DC. But I also think at a state level, there absolutely will be a market for very, very pro-life views. I think on a federal level, you're probably right. And that's what Trump wanted. He just wanted it away from being a national conversation.
Yeah.
Let's jump to the story. We have this tweet from Newsmax, which is actually quite funny. A shocking new projection from pollster Nate Silver has Republican presidential nominee Donald Trump winning every swing state en route to an election landslide over Vice President Kamala Harris, Mediaite reported Monday. So I think we have the interactive polls here. Look at this. Pennsylvania, Trump. Michigan, Trump. Wisconsin, Trump. Arizona, North Carolina, Georgia, Nevada. All Trump, 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 Trump. Polymarket, Trump is at 52%. It's just getting better and better for the guy. We can pull up the latest Silver Bulletin. Let me refresh this, actually. I think he's revised it, and it's even better. 64.4% Trump to win, with a projected electoral vote count of 281. I'm going to read that again for you. Trump is en route to an election landslide over Kamala Harris. And I'm reading this to get you really excited, because then when Kamala Harris wins, you'll be equally as disappointed. I tell you, if you're sitting here right now saying, woohoo, we're going to win, Trump's going to win, whatever, you're going to lose. It's only when you push as hard as you can and you get out there and you vote, you do whatever you have to do, you register your friends, you get everybody registered to vote. That's when you win. But the reality is, no matter what Nate Silver is telling you, we have no idea what's going to happen. So the only thing that matters is assume nothing. Assume nothing. You need to get out and do the work.
I can't tell whether it's kind of sweet or a nasty heckle that they've included Kennedy right at the bottom on the axis line there.
It sort of stops, though. Kennedy drops off as a landmark for us.
0% across the board.
Yeah. Look, I think all of this stuff is nonsense, to be honest with you. And I think the pollsters have not managed to figure out new methodologies that work with a snap candidate, that work with this election, that, take into account everything that changed. Remember, a lot of things changed in 2019 and in the run up to the 2020 election, the way votes are cast, the length of period of time you have to send in your vote. And I think pollsters really have not accounted for all of that, which is why
this is not
stuff all over the place.
This is not a poll.
No, it's not a poll. It's a percentage likelihood. Right.
This is a prediction model.
And this is based off it's the same sets of kinds of data that you're talking about.
I got to give Nate Silver a little bit more credit. He's talked about how he's updated the model over the past several years. He's selected for polls that are weighted more correctly. And more importantly, he said that the current skewing Trump is facing, the model actually predicted the increase. So people got, on the left, liberals, they got mad because he wasn't giving Kamala Harris the convention bump.
Sure.
And he was like, there's not going to be one. It's not happening. So they were like, no, the probability of her winning should go up because after the convention, she's going to see a poll increase. And he goes, no, she won't. Mm-hmm. And she didn't. And with this bump in Trump, he said recently, I think he said on X, that the projection model actually predicted Trump's likelihood to increase in the way we are seeing now. And or something to the effect of, we predict that the model predicted Kamala Harris's polls would not be improving, and they have not been. Now, he does say it's an opportune moment for her with the debate coming up because this is her chance to swing it back in, to bring it back around. I really don't think she can do that. So just so everybody knows, tomorrow night, special live show with members of Congress in D.C. as we're going to have on a rotating panel of various members of Congress who are going to comment on the debate. I imagine it's going to be very, very funny.
So just to come back on your point there for a second with the data that's going in. So firstly, you have to take into account that this is what Nate Silver believes are the more reliable polling that he works into his model, which I'm not necessarily sure I'm ready to do yet, is make that leap of trust there. And the reason I'm not ready to do that is because it goes back to my earlier point, is that those pollsters, right, you talk about the post-convention bump. There hasn't actually been a proper, mega measurable poll bump in the last several presidential elections now. I think going back to 2000, there hasn't been 3 or 4% you might get, but those are within the margins of error on a lot of these polls. So it's not like in the 70s where you'd have this and it would be everywhere, it'd be front page of every newspaper, and that's all people were seeing, and then people were telling the opinion pollsters, oh yeah, I did like what he said about this because I saw it on the front page for 3 fucking weeks straight after their convention. Now you're getting these immediacy, like tries to measure they're measuring sentiment now, right? Coming out of these things. How did you feel when she said this certain word and that certain word? And I think a lot of it is just dog shit. I really do.
Have you seen the things where they have like the focus group watch the debate and they'll give them a knob?
Yep.
Like you twist the knob when you feel good, when left when you feel bad, and then you can watch in real time the collective, like, we like this, we don't like this.
Yeah.
That is funny because ultimately the problem is, who are these people?
Right.
There was some viral story where Democrats were all mad because some conservative podcaster was brought on as an undecided voter. And then was just like, I'm going to vote for Trump. And it's like, you were voting for Trump the whole time.
Can we see Pennsylvania? What does it say about Pennsylvania specifically? Because that is
Pennsylvania,
the real bellwether.
So this, check it out. Currently in the polls, Pennsylvania is D plus 0.3. However, in the last week, it's improved by Trump by nearly 1 whole point.
This is after Tim Walz spending multiple days there, so he's really hurting the campaign.
I don't think Republicans have won in
worse.
Pennsylvania since, what was it, Raheem? Did you say 2016?
2016, yeah.
The last time Republicans won there. So that's why I'm a little, I think that's where it really will all come down to.
Yeah, I think it does. I mean, that's a Nate Silver prediction too, that ultimately without Pennsylvania,
it's all Pennsylvania.
Yeah, she can't win. Harris can't win. Raheem, do you think the change in polling is largely due to moving from a print-based media to a digital media? You need more content and you need it faster?
No, look. There have been many different changes in polling. I did an article about this several years ago for Breitbart where we sort of went into the detail on something called random digit dial. How do you actually reach somebody that you want as somebody for the poll? Because you don't actually want all of these people. The reason that there's so much weighting put on all of this stuff is because sometimes they oversample, sometimes they undersample. I mean, honestly, with some of the measurements I've seen running polls, they'll poll 3 black people and then weight that up as if they're speaking to black people all around the country. And it's completely useless data unless you're dealing with like savant level type stuff, which, believe me, most of these pollsters are not, right? These are commercial pollsters. They're doing it just because their clients are paying them to do it. These aren't passion projects for them. You're ending up, and so, then now there's online surveys, there's all of this other stuff that you get into. And listen, back in 2016, what was the most influential poll all year round? Well, it was the Drudge poll. And that was nowhere near scientific. It was not a real poll. It was not weighted. It was just a survey, a button on a website. But it set the news cycle in motion. And that's what people wanted to see over and over and over again.
Interesting.
So if we go to the Electoral College map right here, and we give Trump all of the swing states, but we give Pennsylvania to Democrats, it don't matter. Trump wins.
He's winning Georgia in this model too?
Yeah.
Okay, well, I hope
no, this is Nate Silver's chance of winning Pennsylvania, 65%. Michigan, 55, Wisconsin, 53, Arizona, 77, North Carolina, 76, Georgia, 69, Nevada, 61. 56 days from the election. Now, one thing I did see that was interesting was that in several, I can't remember, I think it was Michigan, I'm not sure, but Democrats in the Senate, I think it's like 3 different states in this, Democrats are leading in their Senate races in these swing states substantially. So the argument is, how could Trump possibly have be favored to win if the polling is swinging so heavily towards a Democrat senator? Well, it's actually quite simple. It's not good for Trump that the Senate would be Democrat, but Kamala Harris is just that bad. Mm-hmm. Joe Biden was worse, and they didn't think he'd be able to win. So they brought in Kamala Harris because the money, I think the real issue was the money. It's already questionable if Kamala can take the money from the Biden campaign, and they're arguing she can, but apparently she used Biden's FEC number instead of her own. It's this whole mess. If they were to try and swap in anybody else, the money's gone.
Yep.
So they're just thinking, look, we need the money. We have to do Kamala.
Right.
And Kamala is not popular.
Well, and the Senate race, especially in contentious states, they've had more time. They've been running for much longer than Harris has. So I could understand where they might have made more inroads in their own communities. What I find interesting about Harris overall, and I've made this point before, but she is not a stand-in that I think Democrats are happier with. I think they would have preferred to see a competition leading in a culmination at the DNC because it would have encouraged voter participation. I've told the story before that the first Harris sign I saw in this area was not actually a Harris sign. It was a Biden Harris sign that someone had cut in half. And now someone else has told me that she's seen similar ones, but instead of cutting Biden off, they just plaster over it like teachers for, and then it says Harris. Like they are throwing her in because she's there, but not because she has any true influence or is an inspiring candidate. And I think for a lot of contentious races, they're actually trying to distance themselves from her. Look at John Tester in Montana. He wouldn't endorse her.
Well, Trump has a 3.4% chance of winning New Jersey. Look at that. New Jersey.
What about New York?
New York is 1%. Hey, that's a single digit.
There you go.
That's a single digit right there.
By the way,
Massachusetts is a half
Trump
point.
would never let us forget if he won New York. He would talk about it forever.
Those yard signs, by the way, that's just responsible recycling. Okay?
That's true. It's very green.
Environmentally friendly. Look, there was a point in time where, the idea of New York being in play wasn't completely out there when Biden was the candidate.
Yep.
And, the debate, I think, was campaign malpractice. They shouldn't have allowed him to, do that early in a debate with Biden, get him out of the race. But the reason Pelosi wanted him out of the race was they saw how he was hurting all the down ticket races. Yes. And so now you're seeing a situation where a little bit of pressure has been alleviated down ticket. But as you say, people just aren't buying the Kamala stuff. And again, I agree with you. Tomorrow night, it's really his. I don't want to say it like this because it puts pressure on him, but it's his to lose.
Harris might win New York, but if she loses the House seats all around the city, if she continues losing upstate, a lot of House members on Long Island, in these purple districts, if they can't maintain the House, the Democrats, or do the Republicans have the majority now?
Republicans have majority in the House, but if Democrats can't maintain majority in the Senate and or take control of the House, if Trump wins, it's going to be a very tough time for them legislatively.
So David Hogg has this tweet, which goes in line with what we saw from the crosstabs in the New York Times poll. And he's getting ragged on by a lot of people on the right, but he's right. He says, I hope I'm wrong, but if we lose in November, I think the main reason why will be the number of young men of all races that are no longer Democrats. There's been a taboo about talking about this because we understandably are hesitant to make men a main point of conversation. Given we have been for thousands of years, excellent parentheses there, David, we have a real problem to deal with. At this point, with 60 days to go, there isn't much we can do to recover it other than turning out more young women and trying to slow the departure of young men. I think a lot of this is caused by COVID and the epidemic of male loneliness in this country and the ensuing commodification through social media of misogyny. Long term, we have a lot of work to do to provide positive examples of what actual masculinity looks like that is not defined by putting down women or other people, but by lifting others up and being a true leader. David, I've got news for you. That's called the conservative view of masculinity, the providing heroic father, the man who rolls up his sleeves and runs into a burning building. I dare you, good sir, to make a commercial for Democrats where a chiseled, strong man. How about this? Here's my vision. It starts with a frail, overweight man. So maybe frail and overweight aren't the right way to put it, but a weak, overweight man. And he looks in the mirror and says, we can be better. And he works out and he gets strong. And then he's smiling and he's shaking hands with people of all different racial backgrounds. And then one day on his way home, a burning building, and he runs in and he saves a pair of migrant twin babies. And it says, being a man doesn't mean you have to be a Republican, blah, blah, blah. Make that. You know why? They will rip the Democrats to shreds. They will say, why do men have to look that way? Who says you need to exercise? People are healthy. No matter what you do, they will destroy you for this. What does he think Republicans are doing in representing men? Does he think the Republican view of men is that they're all just like the Fonz or like a jock football player picking on nerds? Because the masculine view on the right is strong men protecting the people they care about.
I love this statement because he references the male loneliness epidemic, which I think is real, while also giving an example of why men probably do not want to be Democrats anymore. They're taught to be self-loathing. He says, I'm hesitant to make men the main point of conversation, given we have been for thousands of years. Like, if you
lost
were
everybody.
with a party, why would you be like, I hate myself, but you guys should really hang out with us. It's the worst here, but also let's continue to be a part of this.
A burgeoning faction that we're seeing in the Republican Party now is this, I forgot who coined the phrase, but this sort of barstool conservative, who I think David Hogg is kind of hinting towards. You see Donald Trump going on these podcasts with these young influencers, Aiden Ross types and so on. I think that's the type of audience he's talking about, people who he'd call misogynistic but are just, regular young men, in my estimation.
So that gives me a headache. That whole wall of text, that's like, to me, that's like reading libGPT, right? But what stands out to me about that is no mention of your vice presidential candidate, who is a man, who is supposed to be a coach, who served in the military, It seems like an easy thing.
Dude, look, man, for better or for worse, this is why young guys watch Andrew Tate. And the media loses their mind, and Democrats are losing their mind, and the World Economic Forum types are losing their mind. Why is Andrew Tate getting so popular? We got to lock him up. We got to put him away. Well, look, the dude's certainly got a bunch of stupid, nasty things he's been accused of and things he said. That's not my point. I'm not saying I like the guy. That's up to you. The point is, young guys are watching a dude who's ripped, who exercises, who works out, who smokes cigars, who's got a Bugatti, and they're like, I want to be great. And you're not getting it from Tim Walz. Tim Walz is the doofy, I eat beef and cheese tacos with no seasoning. It's disparaging. Dude, Gordon Ramsay is a white guy, okay? And he's like one of the best chefs ever, right? Why do they think it's going to be endearing to young men when the guy they look up to goes, I don't know, I just put beef and cheese on a tortilla. And just pretending like he's inept and unaccomplished.
I think the things, too, that young men are drawn to are the same things that people in the Democrat Party would call toxic masculinity. For example, with Andrew Tate does hit on a lot of things that men are drawn to. That doesn't mean I agree with everything he says, but he does hit on a lot of things that young men are drawn to. Fighting. He was a fighter. Beautiful women. He has a lot of beautiful women around. Cars, fast car. These are very simple things, but these are things that these people would call you're a capitalist pig because you want, because you want a Bugatti. You're a misogynist because you like hot women. So these are things that liberals and Democrats would judge men for, but are things that young men are drawn to. And Trump's unabashedly embracing these things. His wife is a former model. He likes going to the UFC. He plays golf on YouTube with these YouTubers. So
I very much take your point about wanting greatness. I also think they just want discipline in a lot of senses. Yeah. And this was one of the things that came up when I was, writing about radical Islam in England. Why were so many young people converting to Islam? White young people, especially converting to Islam. And that's because, the Christian church had abandoned this idea of, here is what it is to be a Christian. Here is what it means to be a Christian. These are the value tenets we believe in. It became just like rainbow flags hanging from every church in England. And it is what you make of it. It's whatever you want your truth to be, man. And so young men started gravitating towards Islam. And now you have this really weird situation where you have somebody who was raised in Islam, me, in the West, a brown guy, telling them no, dude, that isn't actually the way to go.
Is that happening in numbers?
It certainly was about 10 years ago. I don't know if the trajectory continued.
It was a huge deal. YouTube actually invited me to a special event they were having because they were concerned that this is really fascinating. They didn't know how to handle free speech and radicalization at the same time. And so what they were, and not that they're really great with free speech, don't get me wrong, but they were basically, the general idea was there are people who produce pro-ISIS videos without saying ISIS or anything. They're pro-jihad Islamic videos. They're targeting young men and they're presenting themselves as reasonable warriors of peace, to be great. And then they're convincing people to move to Turkey and then move down to Syria, where they radicalize them into joining ISIS. And YouTube was like, these things don't break the rules, but we know what they're doing. Mm-hmm. How do we stop that? And that was the question they're trying to ask. You can't just ban a guy who says, my religion is good and here's where you can hang out with me, but they know exactly what's leading to. And one of the main points was that they told us is that young men were finding a mission in life. They were finding passion. They were finding something to be a part of. And they didn't know how to counter that. But I do want to sidestep and then throw Bill Kristol into the mix because this one makes me laugh. He says, distressing, depressing, alarming. After everything, after January 6th, after clear evidence, a second term would be far more authoritarian than the first. After the ever-increasing radicalization of MAGA world, Trump now has more support than he had in 2016 or 2020.
This neocon focus on January 6th makes me embarrassed to call myself one. So this whole stuff with Dick Cheney saying he'll vote for Kamala Harris.
That must have been rough for you.
Well, Liz Cheney has staked her entire identity now on this January 6th being the worst thing to happen since 9/11. Thank God Bush hasn't endorsed Kamala Harris as well. So
or an Adam Kinzinger who was like, I'm here at the DNC.
Elad, at the next meeting, you just got to make sure to say, guys, tone down the January 6th. Tone up the invade Iran.
Come on. What is going on anymore? I don't know if I could call... Well, Bush hasn't endorsed, so...
Dick Cheney, I love this. Someone tweeted, Green Day made a whole album criticizing the Bush administration's government, and now they're aligned with it as Dick Cheney's voting for Kamala Harris. And all the Democrats are like, yay, we've convinced Dick Cheney. I think that says more about the Democratic Party than it does about Dick Cheney.
It was a crazy thing for Kamala Harris not to outwardly reject that endorsement too. I feel like that should have been an easy thing, because even Bernie
Did you
Sanders.
see the interview of her in that coffee shop?
Super
Like a reporter
awkward.
yelled at her. First off, I understand completely why she never does interviews, and she's like, "Oh well, I'm so grateful because they are both great leaders," and like looking down at her hands, like she could have not. This is the one question I expected her not to answer. Instead,
What was
she's
the
like,
question?
they asked her like, "Are you grateful that you have Dick Cheney and Liz Cheney's endorsement?" And she sort of stumbled her way through, which could have just been like, "Oh yes, of course."
I will say
There is a non-zero chance she just heard Dick and got all giddy. So, I mean...
I will say there is not consensus among neocons on the Kamala Harris question. Nikki Haley still said she will vote for Donald Trump.
Right.
John Bolton obviously served as
We'll see.
national security
We'll see.
advisor in the previous term. I'm sure we'll probably see Mike Pompeo again. So
Right.
By the way, this comes back to an earlier point. This is low testosterone. That's what's happened to these old men.
Yeah, well, explain.
Well, look, I mean, everything is pathos here. It's crybaby stuff.
Right.
Oh, it's January 6th. And oh, it's all an appeal to emotion. They're taking logic, they're taking the ethos out of the equation entirely. Because for somebody like Bill Kristol especially, who spent his entire life advocating for Israel and peace in the Middle East, right? President Trump was the president of the Abraham Accords, right? He was the president of very few jihadi attacks. Hamas was not trying to make incursions into Israel under Trump. Everybody was terrified what this crazy man at 1600 Pennsylvania Avenue might do, just might do. If there's an off chance that he might take some retaliatory action, then we don't want to go there. And these, people like Bill Kristol are the ones that really shock me, because actually what they're saying is they never gave a flying fuck about these principles that they profess to have.
well, allegedly, Bill Kristol cares about democracy, right? So I think that's why he's hopping on this January 6th to, in their minds, that's registering with people as I care about democracy because I'm complaining about January
I think the only thing they ever cared about was the petrodollar. And the reason why the neocons have jumped ship to join the Democrats is because, I'll just dramatically oversimplify. Trump and MAGA represents restore America. Literally, make America great again. Secure our borders, focus on this country. Democrats represent, we want to strip everything down to the bare bones. We want to rip the copper from the walls to do whatever we have to do to maintain the international IMF petrodollar infrastructure. So they're going to burn the economy to the ground in the United States, flood the country with illegal immigrants because they're desperate to keep job numbers up and to pad the economy, while they fund the war in Ukraine to push back Russia, while they provide funding to Israel and many other countries, not just those two, but those are the big ones that everyone's talking about. Taiwan, of course. Elad gets mad 'cause I don't mention Taiwan.
National security hawks, too, are most concerned about like Trump's rhetoric around leaving NATO, although I think that's just a rhetorical tool to get them to increase their
course it
GDP to military funding.
But
Democrats don't even try that.
the neocons have joined the Democrats because they're like, look, the only thing that matters is that we blow up anybody who dare oppose the petrodollar. And this is a strong basis for what we see with Russia and Ukraine. It's a strong basis for obviously what's going on in the Middle East. The United States wants to expand the liberal economic order. They're failing at it. They failed at it. When Trump won in 2016, it proved the liberal economic order had failed already. They tried and tried and tried to get rid of Trump. They couldn't do it. When you look at the crosstabs in that New York Times poll and see that the largest demographic for identifying as Democrat is 65 plus in the age groups. This is it literally is the liberal economic order worldview of the 1950s, and it is over. When the next generation moves in, you see Gen Z is not Democrat. They're independent. But people on the right need to understand those young people are leftists. They hate Israel. This shift, this country is going to be so different in 10 years. When the 65 plus crowd are reaching their, they're moving on. I'm not trying to be crass or crude or disrespectful, but when they move on, those votes will be gone with them. And there will be a tremendous amount of impact on the younger generation moving in to the age where they start taking the controls of industry and politics. And the worldview there is dramatically different.
Do you believe the old Churchillian mantra, a liberal at 20, a conservative at 30? No?
Not anymore.
No, but I don't think that was ever really... That's all. They say if you're not a liberal when you're young, you have no heart. If you're not a conservative when you're old, you have no head. And I don't think it's necessarily true. What's actually happening is that society itself was pushing leftist worldview on young people intentionally through, it was constructed. It was on purpose. Well, I would put it this way. I would say it's half emergent, half on purpose. So what happens now is you reach the limit of what leftism can bring you, which is these weird books in schools, racist policies that make everything worse, like Robin DiAngelo's stuff. And eventually people start rejecting it. So what's happening is, let's take a look at where we're at now, right? A liberal, Donald Trump was a liberal in the 90s. He's a New York Democrat or a New York conservative, what do you want to call him, which is meaning he's like a moderate left-leaning guy. Now he's the far right. He represents all of the furthest right things. He's in favor of limited abortion. Donald Trump's position on abortion is like old school, slightly right-leaning Democrat. He's like, well, it should, the states should decide. And of course, Democrats were in favor of Roe v. Wade, but Trump is like, I'm not going to ban it nationally. Maybe we'll find out a certain amount of weeks is good. He is not the staunch far right guy. The system moves not because you get older and become conservative, but because people with a worldview keep that worldview with them. And historically, the younger people have been indoctrinated with further left views until today for two reasons. Internet has changed how culture is being disseminated. More importantly, liberals stopped having kids. I don't mean that absolutely. Liberals, of course, have kids, but they're aborting and sterilizing them. In the 2000s, there's a report people like to bring up about replacement migration that was published by the UN. And the issue was that fertility was too low. Fertility is supposed to be 3 for economic expansion. We were and then in the 2000s, it was like 2.04 or something, or I might have been like 1.9. And so they're like, what do we do when we don't have enough workers anymore? Mass migration. So this is now, there's more conservatives being born and being raised by conservatives with leftist indoctrination. I get it. But this is why the whole thing is starting to skew and shift in this way. It's why the Democratic Party is on the way out. And it's why I think the establishment, the deep state, all of these things, they are fizzling out of control. They're becoming desperate and dangerous. But in 20 years, they probably will not exist. They might exist in some small remnant form that is mocked and ridiculed. But you can see since 2016, let me put it this way. I think it was Brett Weinstein who was talking to, Eric Weinstein, the magician's choice presidency, where it's supposed to be Barack Obama versus McCain. Two people who represent largely the same things with a minor difference in cultural issues. So that people feel like they're winning, their team is getting it. But for the most part, we kind of don't care because we all agree. Donald Trump comes around and says, it's time to restore America. They called him a Pied Piper candidate. They thought he couldn't win. The moment Trump won was when the crack in the armor of the deep state was visible, and they panicked. And they tried to impeach Trump. They accused him of being a Russian spy and all of this nonsense, the phony Alpha Bank story. None of it worked. They've only gotten weaker as time has gone on. That being said, they've gotten more desperate. Now they're trying to criminally charge him, put him in jail, but that's not working. None of it's working. Bill Kristol exemplifies it perfectly when he says, how is Trump more popular? You, sir, are a figurative dinosaur. You represent an old worldview that has faded out of the controlling infrastructure of this country. You have joined the Democrats for this reason, and the worldview of the next generation is massively different. They didn't see it coming. It changed. It didn't become more liberal. It became more populist. And now, when these people, the boomers were all in their late 60s, they're getting close to their late 70s in the next 10, 20 years, they will not be a part of politics anymore. I don't know exactly what it will look like, but this modern iteration of the deep state will not function when that worldview is gone.
You have to wonder if he has any self-reflection at the end there. He says Trump now has more support than he had in 2016 or in 2020. Why? I wonder if he ever asks himself why that is, because he recognizes that is the case, and Trump has been only becoming more popular the more time he spent in politics. But
right. If you feared it, you would want to know why. But instead, he's actually, and I sort of agree with maybe the low T analysis here, he has moved into a more emotional stance rather than being critical, analyzing, wanting, even if you don't like Trump, you have to know why people are interested in him. Instead, it's just actual panic, which is sort of less inspiring in my opinion.
Actually, sadness is what it is. He's sad. He's a sad man and he's feeling sadness and he wants to tweet about his sadness.
Well,
that's sad.
I know the
Very
feeling.
emo.
I know the feeling, Bill. I imagine it's how rollerbladers felt at the end of the 90s. Rollerblading, there were 32 million people rollerblading. It's what launched the X Games. And then by the 2000s, people were slowly not rollerblading anymore. And now, for those that are still pros, they have very small followings. They don't make any money anymore. The industry is gone. So these people must be looking back on the glory days. I remember when you'd go to the park and there were 1,000 kids all cheering and watching you rollerblade, and now it's not there anymore.
I feel the same about trebuchet operating. You know, once upon a time, there were huge armies dedicated to rolling the trebuchet down the hill.
Times have
They've
changed.
changed. Yeah.
Times change, you know? And so a lot of people are sad about this. Jack Posobiec talks about Pizza Hut.
Yeah.
We used to go to Pizza Hut.
Yeah.
And you'd have the salad bar and you'd be with your family. I remember those days. It genuinely makes me sad those days are gone.
You know, every so often
I know
I crave Pizza Hut pizza. You know,
Well, but they ruined it now.
Horrifying.
It's got Splenda in the crust.
Yeah.
Look,
I
I
never
just
went
want-
through that. It was
So this is
Blockbuster.
Coast of America
It was
over here.
Blockbuster.
This is the point.
That was the nostalgia.
Bill
thing.
Kristol laments the loss of this era where we could just easily go bomb anybody we want in the United States. Well, now the American people don't want that.
Yeah.
But let's jump to this story from the Washington Post. Trump pledges to jail opponents, baselessly suggests election will be stolen from him. They changed the headline. No. I think they changed that. Yeah, they did. The former president's latest threats made in a social media post represent the most overt signal yet that he will not accept the results in November if he loses. Sure, I guess. But what Trump has said was, do they actually even have it? Yeah. When I win, those people that cheated will be prosecuted to the fullest extent of the law, which will include long-term prison sentences so that this depravity of justice does not happen again. Trump wrote on Saturday on his Truth Social platform, "We cannot let our country further devolve into a third world nation, and we won't."
I don't disagree that he probably wouldn't accept the results if he lost, but I don't think that social media post explicitly says that. And it says jail opponents, but only if they cheat. So I
Trump
feel like they're
takes
sort of
anti-cheating
no.
calling
stance.
on them.
It's an admission by the Washington Post.
Yeah, it's
Trump says, "I will arrest the cheaters," and they go, "He's going to arrest us." What are you saying about yourself there, buddy?
yeah. So that's yeah. But I don't doubt that he would say it was stolen if he lost. But it's just that's the narrative they have pre-written in their head, in their mind.
Well-
so regardless of what he tweets out on.
Well, let me tell you. He goes on to say, "Please be aware that this legal exposure extends to lawyers, political operatives, donors, illegal voters, and corrupt election officials." Adding that people will be sought out, caught, and prosecuted at levels unfortunately never seen before in our country. You know why he's doing this? Right now, with Nate Silver's prediction model giving him nearly a 65% chance to win, he's basically saying, make your bet. If you're somebody who wants to cheat, make your bet now. Because it's 2-1, you lose, and when you do, you will be arrested. That's what he's saying. He's not saying, I'm going to lose and then challenge the results. That's silly.
I think that's smart.
I need to be a little bit crude about this, but in some cases, you do have to give it to the Democrats because they actually do what they say they will do, or at least do what the Republicans say they do and won't do. And when I say that, I mean, when Trump was running, leading up to 2016, he said he was going to lock up Hillary Clinton. That was the whole platform. Once he got into office, he didn't even try. He didn't, he didn't send anybody after him. Couldn't, if he wanted to, I'm sure he could have found Hillary Clinton on something, the deleted emails. There are a few things going on. Then when the Democrats got into power, they planned on going after him and actually did. And they went after him in multiple states, on the federal level, on multiple state levels. So they actually have the audacity to go through with what they allege. And here they're sort of just gaslighting you because Trump is actually the opponents that the Democrats are jailing. So it's just an interesting way of looking at the whole thing.
Well, here's the thing with they delayed the sentencing for Trump, and a lot of the speculation is that they were concerned the jailing of Trump would push him over the top.
Oh yeah.
But I don't even think he would do it if elected. I don't think he'd go after anybody if elected. It would be the same thing like he said with Hillary.
I'm just saying right now, Democrats have pulled back from actually putting him in jail and delayed the sentencing until after the election, which suggests to me they believe Trump is going to win.
100%.
They're not scared of indicting him. They're not scared of different DAs in different states. There's no Democratic hotshot in the back room saying, no, don't start indicting him in different state levels. They're not scared to. We didn't have any audacious Republican in any of these states decide to go after any of these guys. So it's just...
I just want to make sure everybody recognizes where we are as a country. Donald Trump was shot in the side of the head and narrowly survived. I don't think, I really don't know that people recognize how close to chaos we are.
You didn't say it. Civil war. It probably would have led to.
Well, it's
I
not
think
just
that-
that. It's like I always like to do the time travel test, right? People, Tim's always talking about Civil War. I will stress for the 15 millionth time for those in the back who didn't hear it, you do not want this. People come on the show and they're like, a national divorce would be a good thing. No, it would not. No, it would not. Like, states are going to start fighting with each other. It's going to be bad. You don't want to see where that goes. Foreign influence will come in to start siding with various factions, and you won't know where your milk is coming from. We got it pretty good right now. What you want to happen is for Trump to win. But let's go back in time to 2018. Around the first time on my original show on youtube.com/Timcast, when I was saying there's a potential for a civil war in this country. If you went back then and said, in July of 2024, a shooter will fire a rifle at Donald Trump and the bullet will strike his ear narrowly, missing his head, killing bystanders, Trump will tilt his head and almost die. People would be like, oh, get out of here. Get out. They wouldn't have believed you about January 6th. They wouldn't have believed you about the George Floyd riots. They wouldn't have believed you if you said, a far leftist, if you went back to 2018 and said, in 2 years, a far leftist BLM guy with a communist tattoo on his neck will walk up to a Trump supporter and put 2 in his chest. They'd be like, oh, shut up. These are just street fights. This is normal nonsense protests. And then it happens. And Aaron Danielson gets killed. And then you get the Summer of Love riots. And now we're at the point where Donald Trump was nearly killed. And then it's not even the first time someone jumped the media thing recently. They tried climbing the tower or whatever. You had, in 2015, a guy tried grabbing a gun. We are now at this point. I don't know what happens in the next 2 months. But if you think it just ends here, I mean, I just got to tell everybody to be safe, be careful, be calm. And hopefully we don't see, this escalate in any way. I'm hoping that Democrats are making the moves they're making because they're recognizing Trump actually has the probability to win. I am hoping that Trump does win. And I am hoping we actually just get a marginally good presidency from Trump. There will probably be some DOJ investigations. I don't think they'll be super over the top. Some lawyers will probably go to jail. Maybe we'll get some reforms at the state level. I don't see a second Trump presidency being this despotic Hitlerian nightmare that the neocons and the neolibs are claiming. Trump's going to be it's going to be marginally good. The economy will improve. He'll secure our borders. Wars will stop. That's about it.
Raheem, what do you think we can expect from a second Trump president?
Yeah, I think that's about right. I mean, when you look at who's in charge of the transition team and what the kind of priorities are, I mean, this is going to be a heavily economic focused, at least for its first 18 months, administration. And I think that's exactly where it needs to be. That's what the country wants it to be, quite frankly. I mean, yeah, we've all got our other issues and our pet issues and the things that we care about and are passionate about. But at the end of the day, it comes down to whether or not you can put food on the table, right? And that is what most people in this country are still looking at every single day and going, I can't today. I can't go out. I can't fill the car up, et cetera, et cetera. I'm intrigued, though, as to why we wouldn't have believed all of these crazy things would have happened because, I don't necessarily...
It wouldn't.
Yeah.
I know because I lived it.
Right.
And even to this day, people are still being, oh, you're crazy. And I'm like, hey, when Trump dodged a bullet,
Right.
literally tilted his head,
Yeah.
everyone else said civil war.
Yeah.
And I was like, hey, don't look at me.
I just think I'm of the Billy Joel school of thought with this. We didn't start the fire is a very good example of how crazy shit is always happening. And there are very few moments of human history where there is genuine respite from wild political, machinations and tugs of war. And this is that. I mean, you are the country that has seen multiple of your heads of state shot at, killed, replaced. Still don't know the details of some of them, which is absolutely wild. The JFK stuff is just mental to me, looking at this country, all of its apparatus, all of the administrative state, and yet you don't know who killed, who really killed one of your former presidents. It's crazy.
So this is a story from 2019 in August. It's crazy. 5 years ago, Princeton professor, we are in a cold civil war. And I saw this and I was like, wow, that's nuts. Because a year prior, you had a bunch of national security experts saying the chance of a civil war in this country was 30 to 90%. It was crazy. And I'm like, how?
It's 0 to 100%.
Well, but 30 to 90 is not zero. It's a 1 in 3 chance. And I think the conclusion was, we could pull up the article, but it was something like when you average it out, it's around a 65% chance. I remember exactly what it was like. Every conservative commentator that I had talked to said, oh, come on. This is just clickbait stuff to get traffic. And my response was, I think that the things we are seeing are a track towards a civil war. I'm not saying it will happen, because you can always turn left, you can always turn right, you can always stop the train. But I don't. So a really good example is I had this conversation when the Berkeley riots were happening. And you've got these videos of hundreds of Antifa and hundreds of right-wingers, and they're just bashing each other. And I was like, holy crap. And I was told by a bunch of DC conservative Hill people working for Congress and think tanks and all that, saying, this is just street violence. Stuff happens all the time. You think the civil rights movement was a precursor to civil war, and like, it's never going to happen. And my response was, what about when this ideology, which is, in the far left, what happens when that gets into the government? The response I was told is, the security state will never allow this to happen. And look where we are today. It is borderline chaos. They're trying to put Trump in prison. That's how insane things have gotten. The security state won't allow it. The security state has become a faction in the conflict. There's now two distinct factions politically. Like, it's gone to the highest levels of Democrat and Republican. Granted, Republicans aren't doing anything. Democrats are trying to jail Trump and his lawyers.
Would you do the same in response if you were the Republicans?
I think the Republicans should absolutely be upholding the law to an equal extent, not extrajudiciously, just legally. So when New York, for instance, goes after nonprofits in other states, why aren't red states doing the same thing? Why aren't red state? Okay, Act Blue operates everywhere, right? Why isn't West Virginia saying, hey, we got to investigate? Why is it only Andrew Bailey or Ken Paxton? It's like two guys. So I don't think we want to see a country. I'll tell you this definitively. I don't want to see a country where Donald Trump wins and immediately says the iron fist comes down on all of my opponents. Absolutely not. I want to see a country where Donald Trump says, I've got a reasonably minded attorney general and we're going to bring on an AG, and there's going to be investigations, and there'll be actual evidence. It'll be presented. We will have actual trials. And if there's no evidence and these things are wrong, then nobody goes to jail. I don't want to see any of this. Well, this person I think is bad, so we're going to go after him. No, none of that. I only want equality under the law. We have not gotten that right now. You've got Steve Bannon and Peter Navarro going to prison for contempt of Congress. And then when it comes to Merrick Garland, who's also in contempt of Congress, nothing happens. We cannot maintain a system that flouts its own rules and spits on the people. Where you have Steve Bannon, who is a very prominent, famous populist leader, going to prison for contempt of Congress. And then you have, on the Democrat side, Merrick Garland skirting the rules and nothing happens. This says to the people, the country, that the law doesn't exist. It says only political power exists. It's not sustainable. I think that a lot of these boomers want to live in this petrodollar American hegemonic power world. And it's falling apart. They view themselves, I'm going to use the I Am Legend. Are you familiar with I Am Legend? Sure. Not the movie, the book.
Never read the book.
Okay, the movie's garbage. Okay. The movie has nothing to do with
the movie.
No. Okay, in the book, the point is this. A vampire is a legend. And a vampire hunter seeks out this very rare thing that no one believes is real. In the story, the long story short of it is, as the vampires start converting more and more people, eventually, it's now 50-50, humans and vampires. In the end, it's all vampires. They capture him. They put him in jail. Why? He is the monster that lurks around while people sleep, murdering them in their sleep. To him, he's a vampire hunter. Vampires are bad. Right. But in the end, it's just him. He is now the legendary monster who lurks while they sleep and kills their children and their family members. This is what's happening with the neocons and the neolibs right now. They think they are America. So when they arrest Donald Trump, they're arresting those who oppose America. But you know what? I'll give you a better example. They're the First Order in the Star Wars series. The Empire has fallen, and the remnants of the Empire are trying to mount a counterinsurgency to take back the Republic, and that's the premise, and that's what the deep state represents. More and more, Bill Kristol's tweet where he was like, why does Trump have more support? It's because you lost. It's because your worldview and your way of thinking has died out. And now you are just a thrashing wild beast screaming into the wind, demanding respect that no one will give you. 10 to 20 years, it's over. I don't know what the system will be. Maybe it will be bad. Maybe with the petrodollar falling, the economy is going to get worse. I think it probably will. Chinese communist power will probably expand, and we'll see where that leads to. The BRICS nations will create their currency, and the U.S. will be in a position of weakness, but I believe it already is. You can see this moment happen when Blinken was talking to his Chinese counterpart in that meeting, and the guy from China said, "You are not negotiating from a position of power." To look into the eyes of America itself and say, "You can do nothing," that says a lot about the state of this country. And you can blame Donald Trump and you can blame everybody else, but the reality is Trump won in 2016. And if the deep state was strong enough to maintain the system, they would have stopped him from doing it, and they couldn't because they've lost it. And now they are weakening and fizzling out of power, and in their desperation, they are screaming like banshee babies, banging on the wall and trying to take everyone down with them. I suggest they stop. But I hope Trump wins. And I hope we get legitimate investigations with a calm, rational hand, and we say, "Sir, it is nothing but you broke the law. And you will be charged and you will answer because we have a constitution and we have a legal process." I hope that's what we get.
But if your thesis is correct, why aren't you a boomer neocon? If all of those bad things happen and America becomes weaker, why would you want that?
I don't know about want. I don't know that I want or don't want. I'll put it this way. In 2016, I told this to I've been saying this since 2016. Do you like sitting in your lounge chair, eating chicken wings, paying attention to nothing and watching the game? Then your candidate's going to be Hillary Clinton, because she will blow up any country that stands in her way. She will say, "I came, we saw, he died," to anybody, not just Muammar Gaddafi, anybody. Saddam Hussein, gone. Venezuela, oh, just you wait for what's coming to Venezuela. But the American people didn't want this. The American people had been tired of the endless wars. We had a decade of war. It's only gotten worse since the 1950s. And at a certain point, the system becomes strained. And when the system becomes strained and they keep trying to engage in these schemes, like, let's say, for instance, right now, mass migration to pump up the jobs numbers and keep the economy going, culturally, the system starts to break down. So I'll put it this way. Donald Trump represented securing our borders and bringing us into a position of hard responsibility where we have to do the work. We have to renegotiate our trade deals. We're not going to do these international deals. TPP is a bad idea. It's bad for the American people. And that means you're going to have to do some hard work. But people on the right have no problem with hard work, rolling up their sleeves and doing the work to generate the labor that brings them value. The liberal economic order system is we don't do the work. We don't export goods. We go and bomb other countries. So if you want to sit around and be lazy and fat and eat wings, you want to vote Democrat.
I think the continuation of the liberal world order will hinge on the future of the South China Sea. With how things go down in a future conflict between China and Taiwan is how I think this sways one way or another. Because that's where like a third of the world's economy is. So if we allow China to... What?
But you're right. But what does it matter? The system... Look at the United States. Either there's one of two parent scenarios. Trump is part of the deep state cabal, and the whole conflict between Trump and the deep state is the larger conspiracy, and it doesn't matter who wins. It's still the same game as it always was, but now they're trying to make it... I really doubt that. Donald Trump wasn't supposed to win. He did. He wants to secure our borders. He wants to bring our troops back. He wants NATO to pay its fair share. He wants peace agreements, and this ends the expansion of the liberal economic order. So here's what I see. Under a MAGA worldview right now, you have, guys, our car is breaking down. If we keep driving, we're stranded. We can pull over to the gas station. We can fix the tires, fix the engine before it blows. Democrats say, no, pedal to the metal and push it as hard as we can. And if the engine blows, it blows, but we'll make it to our destination. It is what it is. I kind of don't like the idea of the United States being the world police and just basically taking everything over because they want to. And it's an oversimplification. What I see right now is the liberal economic order has clearly failed. It's not working anymore. The fact that they need to pump in 15 million illegal immigrants to prop up our economy shows it doesn't work. They have failed to maintain this. See, when you look at Democrats, they're not having kids, and you can call it a hodgepodge of their cultural ideas, but for whatever reason, the jobs, you cannot increase the jobs numbers when your population is declining. You can't do it. So they're bringing in as many people from other countries as they can. The problem is that they're doing to the United States economy through its population what we saw in 2008 with the subprime mortgage loan crisis. They are taking AAA-rated high-skilled workers from a developed nation, and they are dumping in low-skill, uneducated workers from third-world nations, and they're calling it the American economy. But sooner or later, the culture can't maintain itself. If Democrats overwhelmingly rely on people who are multicultural from all different places, they're not going to be able to muster up a control of cultural institutions. That's why I think we're seeing the right as a stronger bloc taking over, or at least gaining more and more influence, and the deep state is losing its influence.
I think the liberal world order is suffering from a certain amount of its own success with how rapidly and we've become so rich and are dealing with the consequences of that. Why it matters, though, is an important and key question here, because why I think it matters is because I think our values, although somewhat perverted through some of our elected officials, even the perverted versions are endlessly better than the alternative, which is a communist China allied with an Islamist Iran and a dictatorial Russia. And geopolitics is a zero-sum game. So if Taiwan's not on our side, China will take it over. If China takes over a third of world trade, then the dominant force on planet Earth will be that led by communist ideology. And I'm staunchly anti-communist.
I completely agree with this. You can clearly see the reasons for what's going on with Russia and Ukraine, and it's pure desperation. Not just that, but Israel as well.
Desperation on Russia's part, I think.
Well, yes. But both the West and Russia. Russia lost the soft power battle. Ukraine had an option of staying in the Russian free trade zone or joining the EU, and Ukraine wanted to join the EU because they want Schengen zone. They want their economy to be boosted. They want free movement. When Poland joins the Schengen zone, I think it's in the Schengen zone, but when Poland joins the EU, many Polish migrants move to the UK. They get paid more for the same work. Why wouldn't they? Ukraine wanted that. Russia's threatened by it. What ends up happening is Russia says to, and Putin actually talks about this in his interview with Tucker Carlson. He says, if you guys join the trade zone, the Eurozone, you're going to bring all these European products without tariffs or controls. And then we have an open border with you and it floods into Russia, disrupting our economy. So we're going to close our borders if you do this. Putin said to Ukraine, I will give you billions and billions if you don't do this. And they said, they're going to offer us billions more. And so then Putin said, okay, then I'll invade you instead. That's a loser mentality. That's desperation.
See, I disagree with that. So I was in the Maidan Square during the revolution.
So was I.
It was just, it was on my doorstep, 3 hours flight away from London. I thought, how could I not go and see this take place? And firstly, the EU soft power influence there was everywhere, palpable. Flags, flyers, leaflets, everybody talking, spreading propaganda information. But at the end of it all, it wasn't the failure of soft power from Russia that let that happen. It was the switch to hard power by the West. I mean, they effectively overthrew the government. That is not a soft power tool. A coup is not a soft power tool.
It is soft power.
A coup is a hard power tool. That's when you move, and that's why we're now on the hard end of a war.
I use hard power to describe use.
But that was the transitory moment, right? That was when it stopped being, we're going to drop leaflets on your village to tell you how good we are. We're actually going to overthrow your government here and pull you into a war.
Explain the overthrow the government stuff.
Well, so that was who was the guy before Poroshenko?
Yanukovych was in office.
So you had Yanukovych, and you had pretty good relationship with Russia, as good as he could possibly get while keeping the EU on board. By the way, they were not. There was no animus. There was no active animus between Ukraine and the EU during this period of time. But there were overtures from the EU. Look, want to expand its power. Fully understandable. That's why we left. We didn't want to be a part of that. The whole Brexit thing was,
So the
war stuff was a big part of it.
Right. So the argument is that the U.S. It's and people say the CIA, but it's Western powers. It's NATO countries included.
Well, it's mainly the EU.
Right. And so the argument was that the EU conspired to prop up protesters that would overthrow their government. But the issue is, did you think Russia was not doing the inverse?
No, they absolutely were. I saw it.
That's why I said
they poisoned Poroshenko, Viktor Poroshenko.
But this is why I said this is soft power. The two powers that were fighting over Ukraine were trying to use subterfuge to win control quietly. And then when Russia lost the subterfuge battle, they said, send in the troops instead. But
a coup is not subterfuge. Like, replacing the government is not subterfuge. Replacing the government, we're going in there and saying we're going to replace you as a leader. There's a new government now. That's when you move into hard power.
So the point is Russia and the West are doing the exact same things.
Sure. Yeah, absolutely.
The West won.
Absolutely.
So Russia said, send in the guns. I think that's...
I don't see it as a victory. And this is what we were warning about, and this is what Nigel gave speeches about in the European Parliament on the run-up to that war, is that actually a war is not a victory for the West. That is not what we want. It's not what we want to be a part of. It is not what we want on our doorstep. what it's caused in terms of refugees across Europe as well, Ukrainians moving across Europe. It's been absolutely devastating it's been devastating for the EU. It's been devastating for the UK, and we're not even in it anymore.
So bigger picture, the issue is, you're familiar with the Qatar-Turkey pipeline story, and,
Sure.
and it goes well back before that as well. But basically, Gazprom controls about 20% of natural gas into Europe. Russia controls Gazprom, of course. They've got Nord Stream. And the U.S. is trying to cut their market monopoly, their large controlling share, so they can compete and get prices down. The idea on the surface, because a lot of people don't agree this is true, but the surface idea was that Europe needs cheaper energy to expand more rapidly. The cost of petrol, the fighting, all of these things. Some people believe the climate change stuff is an excuse to try and to control fuel so they can basically market seize it and put it where they want to put it. I don't know. Maybe they're just crazy ideologues on climate change. Maybe it's true that they're basically saying, oh, climate change, you better let us dictate how you can use your fuel. The U.S., again, on the surface, and NATO want cheaper gas. They want to build a pipeline through Syria and Turkey. Syria says we're allied with Russia. We won't let you do this. We are instead going to build a pipeline with Russia and double down their monopoly and increase their control. Syria magically just falls into a civil war where the U.S. is on the side of ISIS. Not really, but, kind of, because ISIS is destabilizing Bashar al-Assad. And the U.S. was in support of rebels in the country. The U.S. wanted this. Then you have Joe Biden and Burisma in Ukraine. Why? Because they needed an alternative, energy company alternative that could control the energy flowing through Ukraine to compete with Gazprom. We lose the Qatar-Turkey pipeline battle. We are not going to be able to get our gas in. We have to take Ukraine. Otherwise, they're going to keep the prices high. And this bubbles up into the conflict we're seeing today. And the argument is, again, all on the surface, because some argue that Democrats are colluding with the Chinese communists. That's why Hunter and Joe they flew on Air Force Two for the private equity deal in China. But the general idea is that you cannot defeat China so long as they're backed by they're aligned with Russia, because Russia will rush to their aid and make them strong. If a conflict with Taiwan happens, then we go to conflict with China. We're in water battles, struggling. We've got Australia, we've got Taiwan, and we've got our islands. But Russia's a landmass. It's going to be manufacturing and sending in weapons and reinforcing China. So the U.S. has to go and cripple Russia first. So they want to shut down their energy. We want to limit their energy. So Ukraine, of course, is now accused of blowing up Nord Stream 2, which weakens Russia's sales. We want to take, and it's not just Ukraine about Burisma, shutting down their Black Sea fleet. And Sevastopol allows us to stop them from selling oil through the Mediterranean, crippling their economy, putting them in a weakened state. And once they're weakened, then should the China-Taiwan conflict erupt, we have a clear shot at shutting down China as well. That's the surface level foreign policy argument that people will tell you. Granted, there's a lot of other theories about actually the Democrats are working with the Chinese. I don't know if I believe that.
I think there's a failure of Europeans to understand Vladimir Putin for what he is. Angela Merkel deciding to extend the Nord Stream 2 pipeline is only giving additional political leverage to Putin. In their ideas, it was, free markets will give us leverage over Russia because we're paying them for gas. Therefore, peace is preferable. But that's assuming that Putin isn't some sort of Russian irredentist. The economy is a means to an end to try to take over more parts of what he views as prior Russian Federation territory.
He wants to bring back the Soviet Union.
Yeah, and Donald Trump has said this before. The Germans and Europeans accepting cheap gas from Russia is only allowing more leverage of the Russians on top of the Europeans, because now you have to consider, if I do this, will the Russians not sell oil to us and jack up prices? Cost of living goes up, and now I'm unpopular in Europe. And
it's another good reason why Trump was telling them you got to pay your fair share. And recently, Germany issued an arrest warrant for Ukrainian for bombing Nord Stream 2.
Well, that's why it's a good reason that Nord Stream 2 is blown up, because now we eliminated the leverage that the Russians can have.
And this is why Germany's mad, because Germany has not been, I don't know what the right word is for it, but they've been rather, we're going to work with Russia, why not? And the U.S. has been like, stop doing this.
They want cheap gas. And then maybe, Raheem, you could tell us a little bit more about the German far right coming more to power. I don't know.
Why did you wink at me there?
No, because you know European politics better than we do, so it's just
good cover.
Well, let's save a little bit for the members only show for sure, because I definitely want to talk about this story. We have this from the New York Post. We got to get into it. Haitian migrants eating pets. Here's the even more serious story about immigrants in Springfield, Ohio. I'd like to show you this first. Savannah Hernandez says, still can't get over this Haitian dude walking around with an entire goose like it's a freshly prepared bag of Chick-fil-A. We are so cooked. I just, I got ragged on for saying this. What is this? Got 9,000 retweets, 3.4 million views. I'm like, first of all, do we know that's a Haitian guy? It might be. I don't know. But it's just a picture of a black man with a goose. Okay, now, look, I know it's probably not the most probable outcome, but could you imagine if this guy's name is like Henry Smith and he just went hunting with his buddies? It's Canada Goose season. And afterwards, he lives 2 blocks away. They drive back and they're like, do you want to, treat this rabbit? Or like, I'll just carry it home. And then someone takes a picture of him and now they're accusing him of being a Haitian migrant who stole a goose. I'm not saying that's true. I'm just saying we should wait till we know what this is, who this guy is, or why he has the goose. Okay. Maybe he bought the goose from a goose store. I don't know. Probably not. But the big story is in Ohio, locals are complaining that Haitian migrants are catching ducks in the park and then cooking and eating them. And people don't like that. I just want to say one more thing before we get into the deep dive on this. Like, there's something funny to me about people eating dinosaur-shaped chicken paste, breaded, dipped in ketchup, complaining about a man catching a bird to eat it. It's like, I get it. It's probably illegal depending on where you are because there's restrictions on when you can hunt. People don't like it when you take the ducks out of their park or whatever, and they're federally protected. But it is funny that we're at this point where modern civilized society is like, egad, he's caught a goose to eat. And, you go 100, 200 years, 100 years ago in New York, they'd walk outside their houses in New York, throw a net over a bunch of passenger pigeons, and just drag them inside and eat them.
Sure, but in this case, they're talking about the ducks in the local park that probably everyone takes their toddlers to feed. I mean, it's more equivalent if someone stole your cat or dog out of your yard. Then I don't care if you're eating chicken nuggets. I would also say, yes, very bad. We don't like this as a culture.
No, I'm just saying
we're sort of staunchly against it.
Well, the greatest irony here is that these companies that make the chicken nuggets and all of that, they actually mass employ illegal undocumented migrant labor. So they're bringing over the migrants who are eating the real chickens in the fields while you're eating the paste, right?
Well, you don't want to eat, that's what they say about when you're making something, you don't want to see it.
Yeah.
This is really a story about the rising cost of living in all certain communities. People have to go hunting for their own ducks, and how desperate some migrants apparently are. If he is,
this is Bidenomics. This is Bidenomics right here. Yep.
Yeah. Let me play this video. I think they'll play the audio of this guy.
And I'm a social media influencer, and I just be on TikTok and stuff. I do YouTube. I think it's like kind of odd that like a guy like me has to come out from doing what I do on a daily basis to have fun. Because I see what's going on in these streets, and I see you guys just sitting up there in them comfy chairs and suits, and I'm getting out here every day, and I'm broadcasting this, and you guys are just sitting up there in suits or something. Like, I really challenge you guys to get out here and do something. These Haitians are running into trash cans. They're running into buildings. They're running into... They flipping cars in the middle of the street, and it's nothing but immigrants over there. And I don't even want to, seem like I'm coming down on the immigrants because it's the people that's bringing them down here. Because wherever they're at, that's what they're used to, bro. They're in the park grabbing up ducks by their neck and cutting their head off and walking off with them and eating them like.
Donald Trump's decision to...
I don't know. It's a wild story. I mean, and the media is losing their mind. Look at this one.
Has anyone remixed that yet? That would be a great... It's like hide your kids, hide your wife.
Here you go. Trump campaign amplifies false claim about Haitian migrants in Ohio. A local official said there was no evidence that migrants have stolen and eaten pets. An outlandish claim amplified by the Trump campaign on Monday. And of course, there's a picture of J.D. Vance.
What is this, Springfield, Ohio? I think there are a lot worse crimes going on in Springfield, Ohio. I could be wrong, though.
Dude, I don't know. I don't like that people are snatching pets.
I want to make sure we get this. Job opportunities in Springfield have attracted thousands of Haitians since the pandemic, with city officials estimating that as many as 20,000 have arrived. By most accounts, the immigrant community has helped revitalize the town, though it has put pressure on housing, schools, and hospitals. Springfield has roughly 58,000 people as of the last census in 2020. Resentment has also brewed among some residents over immigrants' presence, and those emotions have bubbled over since an immigrant driver was involved in a fatal bus crash last year. Mr. Vance has latched on to the complaints of the community and denounced the Haitians as being in the United States illegally draining social services and generally causing chaos. I got to tell you, is the New York Times saying that locals are complaining about this?
Yeah.
I mean, we just played a video of a guy saying, hey, man, they're catching ducks.
Well, he's just a local resident, whereas a local official said it's not happening. So it's really who can you trust here?
You know, immigration, there are obviously a lot of issues with illegal immigration and how cultures mesh, but I'm looking up Springfield, Ohio, and I think they have an extremely high gun crime rate too. So there, you know, this duck issue and how the migrants are getting along with the natives in this town are an issue, but maybe there's more of a problem with gunplay in the community.
They formed an immigration task force in 2023. I mean, obviously absorbing, you know, if in 2020 it was 58,000 people and they absorbed basically, you know, half of or just under half of that population. Again, that's pretty significant. I know that the line is that immigration is here to save us from our collapsing birth rates and dying towns. I just don't know that that's the case if you have an immigrant population that is not here to assimilate and live by the values, right? Like, and I'm not even talking about the goose snatching and the kitten snatching or whatever it is. You know, if you have a group of people that, you know, don't want to speak the local language, they don't want to abide by the local laws, yes, you might literally be filling vacant houses. On the other hand, you are causing other issues for your community. I could understand the residents' frustration. Being told constantly, like, no, they're fine and immigrants are a blessing is making it worse. It's making it more difficult for everyone involved.
Well, so this is in a county that 60% supported Trump in 2020, and 37% is Democrat. I have to imagine those 37% Democrat are now all Trump supporters.
We'll have to keep track of how they vote in the upcoming.
One of the lines I'm seeing from a lot of people is that the Biden administration brought these migrants into a largely Trump-supporting town. I just want to say, I mean, if this guy is saying, I don't even want to say it's the immigrants, he sounds like he's more of a Democrat-leaning guy. He's pissed about this. All this stuff does is create more Trump voters. When you go to Chicago, there was that viral video where the black community members were saying they were being replaced.
Yeah.
Okay, you put illegal immigrants in their schools and they wonder why they can't go to the gym, why they can't bring their kids there anymore. They're going to vote for Trump. Not all of them, but it's going to create Trump support. So I don't look, in the long run, it's a bad thing, but it results in people saying, fix it, and going to the guy who they think can.
Do you think we'll get a pushback from Democrats saying, look, these people are just hunting public ducks and that's okay? And that's why, you know, you don't need your guns. You could just catch things by hand because these people are doing it. I mean, I think that there are a lot of ways to spin this argument, you know, for and against what's happening here. On the other hand, I think it's really asking this town, which we're already acknowledging is economically disadvantaged, to pay the price for federal fight over whether or not we should allow Haitian immigrants in.
And you know, you look at the type of story it is. This is not an isolated incident as far as we understand migrants in the Western world, especially illegal, especially recent, having, you know, taken part of things like this. We've seen it in Europe. We see it in England all the time. Look, I don't know whether that guy with a goose was a guy with a goose or whatever, but the fact is it doesn't seem to stretch credulity. And a lot of people will look at that and be like, yeah, sounds about right, and kind of move on with their day, right? And we shouldn't even be in that situation. This should not, Tim, is what I would have said probably could not have predicted 10 years ago, is you putting that up on the screen right now.
I was just curious. I just asked ChatGPT if you could catch a goose the way you would catch a fish. And it was like, no, of course you can't. You know, geese required to be trapped or hunted in different ways. And then I said, yeah, but like if I tied food to a fishing line and it ate it, couldn't I like reel it in? And it was like, technically, yes, that you could, but you know, you shouldn't do that. And I was just, I don't know, you know, I'm just thinking about it because you mentioning catching a goose in the park. There are parks where people go fishing and it's catch and release. So, I mean, is catch and releasing the ducks a bad thing?
He's not really releasing it to the park, though, if he's walking it across the
I'm not saying that. I'm saying if you walked up to a duck and picked it up and they're like, look, I got a duck, and you let it go, I don't think anybody would care.
I'm in favor of free-range foie gras, I'll tell you. That's fine by me.
I'm against catch and release. I don't know.
I just think it's funny. Look, I get it. When you say we bring our kids to the park and they watch the ducks and they feed them and stuff like that, that's the not normal thing. That all of human history, that was never the case. Humans would go and they'd see a duck and they'd jump out of the bushes and whack it with a stick and then eat it. The idea that we're in this modern society where we can sit at the park and just look at the birds and be like, look at that, we don't care, we have so much food. That is the new modern society abnormal thing that's normalized. I'm not saying it's wrong, I'm not saying we shouldn't enjoy the ducks in our park. I'm just saying it's funny because these guys coming from Haiti or wherever they're coming from are being like, it's a bird. We eat birds. I don't know.
We're suffering from our success here in America.
See, that's what's weirder
where
to
we
me,
forget that this is food for people.
Well, I don't know that we do because you're not going to the pond and taking out the local
But
duck
I
or whatever.
would, maybe, if it was kosher. I need to
Duck
look
hunting is common in America. People still do this. It's not that we stopped hunting. It's still a common practice. People still hunt deer, even though we don't get it as sort of a grocery store meat. What's stranger to me is that you would have someone who's arrived in America and is like, well, I'll just continue hunting from the local public park. Like, wouldn't you think at a certain point you would hope that you'd be like, you don't need to do that anymore. That one we just let hang out here.
Look, I'm saying this is, have you guys seen The Big Short?
Yeah. Yes.
When that scene where he explains how they've put all of the low credit score, garbage rated mortgages into the nice ones to make it look like it's nice. Basically, they're like, hey, 100% of these are good. Put 20% bad ones in, and it's an 80% good security, and that's we can monetize the garbage. What we're seeing now is, in order to maintain the economy because of a declining population, Democrats are largely saying just let all of the migrants come and enter the border illegally. Then they become illegal immigrants. The problem is you are basically taking these are people with obvious lower credit ratings, low skill. You're displacing low skill labor. It only will work in the short term until you will get the Big Short housing equivalent of the entire U.S. economy.
The problem is GDP is also going down because these people, these migrants are rarely as productive.
No, that's
undocumented
literally the point.
Migrants,
when you put the bad mortgages in with the good ones, the bad ones start defaulting. It causes the whole thing to crumble.
Yeah.
So when you bring in people who don't make as much money to try and replace, look, you got someone who's 65, COVID happens, and they're like, look, I make 60, 70 a year, but I'm done. I'm not going to deal with COVID. I'll just retire now. That's a manager level position. You're not going to get a migrant to replace that manager. It's not going to happen. Plus, the young people can't just jump into that position without training. Yeah. So I think COVID caused a serious managerial crisis in our economy. And I think it's a freight train that got slammed to a stop and crashed, and now they can't figure it out again. Not that they can't figure it out, but it's really difficult to get going. And they're just saying, bring in 15 million people, and it'll do something.
We're struggling too because we can't decrease the pyramid, the population pyramid, because as a result of that, our tax revenue would decrease as we have an increasing amount of old people in our country. And then we have Medicaid, Medicare, and Social Security that will have to be paid out. That is going to be insoluble, it's untenable for the future. And that's when the crisis will hit. So that's why we need to continue. That's why our economy is forced to continue bringing in young people, young migrants is the idea behind it.
Young men, specifically.
Young people to, in essence, to try to stimulate the economy. But then again, the unintended consequences we deal with as a result of that, something has to come to a head.
And the issue, I think, aside from this, is that culturally you cannot maintain that system. So what we end up seeing is what the media claiming it's not happening. Aurora, Colorado, this is the funniest thing. When this migrant gang takeover stuff started happening, the police largely were telling people to avoid the area, and that was like a year ago. Now it became a big talking point where the right actually started spreading the story, and the media comes out and says, it's a lie, it's not happening. And you just go, I think it was Anna Kasparian. She was like, here's a quote from a year ago where they said it was happening. Now they're acting like it's not. They are desperate to try and keep the American population calm as they flood the system with as many workers as possible. I can make it real simple for you. When the job report comes in and we've lost 100,000 jobs, the economy does worse. But how are we supposed to create new jobs when we aren't making new people? Very simple. There's one solution. The end of fractional reserve garbage economy in the petrodollar, or open the doors and let them all in. Then instantly give them work visas. That's what they've been doing, work permits. You walk in, you get a work permit, get to work right away.
You could go the Japan route where you just accept a declining economy and a declining population, and you conserve elements of your culture and society that you value. Yeah.
And Trump says, secure the borders, get better trade agreements, and get to work. And I think that's what we have to start doing right now. The Democrat plan to me sounds like slam the gas, the engine might blow, but so what? We don't want to do the work.
Can I just ask why we haven't mentioned just having more Americans having more babies?
And that, I think, is the appropriate thing to do. And that's why, on shows like this, we advocate for it. That's why I will give a shout out to Kamala Harris for her new policy on her website where she says she wants to increase the child tax credit.
There's a really long conversation to be had about what to
she stole from JD Vance.
One
of
upped him
course.
by $1,000.
Yeah.
Yep, that's right.
Well, I think it was the Democrats' plan initially. I don't think J.D. Vance was one of the first Republicans to ever, I think, endorse any of the child tax credit stuff.
I say if you have 3 kids, your family, if you have 3 kids and you're married, so long as you're married, your family is tax exempt.
Why should I be paying for your kid?
Because
As a taxpayer, right? Like,
because children are what make the society continue to exist.
Right, because those kids will be paying for your retirement.
Exactly.
I just think it's a ridiculous ask. Like, we're already taxed at such a high rate, and now we're just going to try to.
Elad
there
hates
a time
kids,
lag
just so
to
everyone
tax?
knows.
Hey,
No, I
no,
just
no.
don't think we should
just
be
kidding.
giving tax breaks out in general. Everybody should pay.
No, wrong. So you, a singular bachelor male, want to enjoy all of that society has to offer, but parents who are having children, maintaining the country and the economy and literally creating the future are doing the hard work, and you want their labor for free.
No, they want my labor for free to pay
No.
for their children.
No, see, you're not contributing to the future of the country.
Men my age contributes the most to the economy. I don't think I should be burdened.
future.
I
You're
don't.
not helping with replacement rate right
I don't
now.
think I should be burdened with the tax burden of helping people who do decide to have families. If you decide to have 10 kids, God bless you. You should pay for them. I shouldn't be burdened with raising your kid.
Okay,
The
all
state
right.
shouldn't be burdened with raising your kid.
Abolish Social Security next, right?
Oh, yes.
Okay.
I mean, also, for many reasons, but it's going to abolish itself soon enough. It's not soluble. We're not going to be able to maintain it for another 20
Right.
years.
So you don't get any benefits, right? You should not be allowed benefits.
I don't want to pay in and I don't want to have to take out because it's a Ponzi scheme. I'm always getting less than I pay in. Don't be confused. When we get our Social Security paid out, we paid more into it. I'm not ever seeing my Social Security. I'm not under any illusions that I'm seeing any Social Security. I'm paying into a system that I will not
Are
get
you okay?
any money with.
Are you okay?
That's
Are you okay with the mass illegal immigration?
No.
Okay, well, you recognize that when I say give tax exempt status to a family that is married with at least 3 kids, you have to be married. If you divorce, you lose tax exempt status. The purpose of that is to create economic means by which it is easier for families with children to survive in the economy. Because if those kids aren't being born and we're not above replacement, then the economy collapses. You're gonna be 50. There's gonna be no kids, and you're gonna be like I said.
This
like,
might be the libertarian in me. I think society has reasons to reproduce, and I think culturally we should encourage it. But I don't think government should have a large role in trying to increase its population. I think it happens. We shouldn't have like a 1-child policy or 2-child policy. But we should allow our cultural and societal institutions to handle that thing. I don't think we need J.D. Vance saying, "Hey, I'll give you a tax break. That's why you should stay with your wife." I don't think that's why people
exactly
stay.
what you need.
Well, I don't think that's why people stay together, and I think there's like a misunderstanding. It's like I don't like my wife that much, but I'm going to get a tax break, so I'm not going to divorce her.
Absolutely.
Yeah, but guess what? You're not going to like the
Absolutely.
next one either after that. And you're not going to
And-
like what comes along after that. Have you seen Louis
The
CK's
few $100
series?
isn't
Life
what's
is not
gonna
better
change that.
afterwards.
Few $100s.
But, I
So
mean,
you have
for
a
each
family with 3 kids,
tax credit.
and the dad on average is making $70,000 a year. You're talking about $20,000 he gets to keep every year.
How many kids? So
3
we're-
kids.
3 kids. We're going to give them a $20,000.
No.
tax break
You
between the
get
two of
tax
them.
exempt status, and so at $70,000 a year, you're probably paying 15 to 20 maybe.
Oh, it's a lot
I mean,
of
I don't
money.
know if
It's
we'll
a
be
lot of
able to
money.
deal with
And
that
sales
loss. I don't think we'll be able to deal with that.
You show your card, you say
hole in
family
our
card, and they
tax
say no
burden,
taxes for you.
Yeah, I don't think I should be encumbered by having to pay for. Well, like
I do.
Yeah, well,
I don't have kids either.
sounds like
Hold
communism
on.
to me.
You just said you're not going to see it anyway. So what do you care?
Well, I wouldn't like to pay into it to begin with. It's a broken system that's being exacerbated at my expense.
But right now, okay, so you said a
Well, why
minute ago you
won't-
don't think government should have a role in setting policy that grows the family populations across
At least
the country,
at the size
right?
where it's doing it.
What do you
yeah.
call it when a government presides over a shrinking and failing nation? That is,
I think it's
that is
because it's too
misgovernment.
involved. It's
That is
the more
misgovernment.
involved they get, they don't understand
Oh, I
how
don't
to
want it involved in everything. But
all
surely
right.
get the
We gotta-
basics right.
We do got to go to Super Chats, but I think my general understanding is that Elad is opposed to the concept of a nation state, where a group of people form rules to maintain their existence and their way of life. Your worldview is, I should not have to contribute to the furtherance of this nation. I would be burdened by that.
I think through society's cultural and different societal structures beyond the government, you could contribute to society. And half of the time when the government tries to accomplish something, they actually accomplish the opposite. So that's why I don't think they should be getting involved to begin with. Because one person's way to solve something is totally different from another person's way.
Right,
so how is Kamala Harris going to handle the lowering birth rate issue? Is different from then how
opening the borders.
Is different from how certain Republicans.
Trump says he's going to ban abortion. I mean that figuratively.
Yeah.
Like overturn Roe v. Wade and give it to the states, and the states can then act abortion bans.
I think there's a birth rate issue. We should have more kids. I don't think, this child tax credit is the answer. I think less government involvement with families would help spur more children.
I think,
among other things.
I think taking people out of tax is taking them out of government involvement.
I don't think it should be we should reduce income tax for everybody across the board, not particularly for families.
Except you.
Everybody should be.
We're going to go to Super Chat. So if you haven't already, would you kindly smash that like button, subscribe to this channel, share the show with your friends, head over to timcast.com, click join us, or sign up. You can click sign up. Become a member to support our work because, oh boy, we are less than 2 months from the election, and it's already getting very, very, very spicy. So we've got some legal bills, but I'll have some updates for you in this coming week. We'll see how things end up playing out. There's several big stories in the news, but we need your support. Timcast.com. If you like the show that we do and you think it should continue, become a member. And then the members only uncensored show is coming up at 10, where we'll probably argue about families and war. It'll be fun. All right. Shady H. Wilder says, shout out to Chris Bertman as they're expecting. This is the way. Let's go. That's right. Tax exempt.
Mazel tov, Chris. You're not getting the tax exemption. Or maybe if Kamala wins, I guess you will.
Raymond G. Stanley Jr. says, I'm currently 50-50 on Linkin Park's new singer. I think she might be good in the studio because you can see that her voice is not bad, but those live performances were not sung well. What I mean to say is the sound of her voice, like the pitch, and her style, it's good. But she missed a bunch of those notes when she was playing live. So, maybe in the studio it'll sound really good.
She sounded like she was trying, and I have very strong opinions on this. I was a big Linkin Park nut as a kid. I was actually in my own rap rock band, if you can believe it. And we did covers, right? We played covers of, Crawling and In the End, and those were our favorites, and Paper Cut, and, that was when Hybrid Theory came out. And in those clips, it sounded to me like she was trying to sound like Chester, and her brain was just going to, what would Chester sound like? What would Chester sound like? I think when they released the single, the first time I heard it, I was like, this is garbage. The second time I heard it, I was like, it's okay. Yeah. The third time I heard it, I was like, this is actually quite good.
A new single with her?
Yeah, they've got it out, yeah.
So I'll check it out because I only watch the live performances.
It's okay.
But the rasping semi-scream, it worked for Chester.
Right.
Because it didn't seem fake. Mm-hmm. I think with the new singer, it seems like like you said, she's trying to emulate that sound instead of just singing.
Right.
Yeah. She has big shoes to fill, and Chester will always be the voice I hear when I think about Linkin Park in a DBZ fight montage on YouTube.
Yeah. Linkin Park was great.
Yeah.
Is great.
Yeah.
That Hybrid Theory was amazing.
Yeah.
What an album. Wow.
And before that, Chester's band before that, Grey Days, was really great as well. They've got stuff available on YouTube still.
All right. Jason Dixon says, congratulations to Brett and Cassandra McDonald. Oh, everybody's having
We're kind of a Timcast baby boom right now.
There you go.
See, without tax exemption, still having children.
3 kids.
3.
You get your government tax card so long as you're married. If you want a divorce, you have to turn it in. You turn it in, they cut it.
Can I also suggest dedicated lounges at airports for these people?
Agreed.
Yeah.
Yep.
Perfect.
I am not even kidding. Man, there was a meme where it was like, what happened? And it shows the McDonald's with the play place and the McDonald's today. What happened is people didn't have kids.
Right.
So McDonald's as a corporation says, we're not going to invest in a play place when no one comes here with children.
Even the color scheme's inside now.
Because nobody cares.
Right.
Before it was, we want the kids to want to go, McDonald's. So the parents will be like, okay. The parents would say, I'll order food and the kids can go play in the ball pit, and they're occupied. People don't have the kids now.
I dread to think what you get in a Happy Meal now.
They have adult Happy Meals.
You have like a butt plug or something.
They have adult Happy Meals with toys and drinks.
Yeah, that's what I'm worried about.
But it's not what you're describing.
Okay,
Family
fine.
friendly. We don't, come on. All right. Yes. Here we go. Based African says, Tim, your AI magnum opus was a few months too early and featured the wrong animal. You got to exercise your inner Nostradamus a bit more. Maybe take some tips from The Simpsons. What, you're talking about the chicken? I announced that we're launching Neo Chicken City. So we had Chicken City, New Chicken City, and now Neo Chicken City.
Over here?
Yeah.
Oh, wow.
We're building a New Chicken City.
Is it going to be the same chickens or?
Yeah.
Okay.
I mean, they're kids and they die, and they're chickens. They don't live long. But then I made a picture of a chicken in a futuristic neon, city with sunglasses on. What I wanted to do was make little neon sunglasses for one of the chickens, because they have these things you put on their beaks that cover their eyes so they don't peck each other. It doesn't cover their eyes. It just creates a block so they can't see directly in front of them, because otherwise they fight. And they'll have to look sideways when they're looking at food. But I was thinking it'd be cool to make the same thing, but little sunglasses.
What is Chicken City?
It's a live stream of my chickens.
Oh, I see.
Yeah, so you can watch the chickens do, chicken business.
Careful, you'll have a bunch of Haitians watching soon.
The first month of Chicken City, we brought in about $20,000 revenue.
Wow.
The second month was about the same. And then I kind of just stopped promoting it.
Yeah.
And so now it does bring in a good amount of money. The way it works is when you super chat live, it fills up a meter. And once the meter reaches $100, it plays a chicken party dance song and makes food, like treats come down. The funny thing is, at first, it's me screaming chicken party and then a dance song plays. The chickens would just be like looking around like, what? But then the food would come down, they'd run over the food. It didn't take them long to realize when you hear me going, chicken party, they run full speed like food's coming. And so it's funny to watch the little morons run to get
Well, I know what
treats.
I'm going to do before the debate tomorrow for the warm-up.
ChickenCityLive.com.
There you go.
It's a brutal show, man. There's fighting, there's love, romance.
Is that the uncensored?
Political
Is that
disputes. It's like Game of Thrones.
Yeah.
Like when Roberto III is fighting with, one of the other roosters. I don't know the name of the roosters now. We got RB3, we call them. When they're fighting, it's just like Game of Thrones,
So who's like top C right now?
I have no idea.
I see.
We got to move everybody over. But Roberto, we call him RB3. So Roberto was the first rooster. He had a son, Roberto Jr. Roberto Jr. died of a heart attack. I'm not kidding. And his son, RB3.
From the chicken party noise?
No.
I was going to say.
Just the stress of the political dynasty.
We think he just had a bad heart
Oh.
because he was only, I think, like a year and a half or 2 years old. And Kim, our chicken tender, was washing his feet off because it happens. And then he just went and died. And he wasn't scared of us. He was raised inside. Like when he was born inside, we're all watching. And then we used to hold him. So he didn't have an aversion to people. He'd walk around. He was super chill. He wasn't aggressive, but he just had a bad heart.
It's like
Sometimes it happens.
Like a Chicken Truman show.
Sad state of affairs. Roberto Jr. But RB3, his son, carries on his legacy. Let's go. All right. Andrew Oborny says, here is some lawyer money. My question, though, why do people complain about wanting to tax the rich corporations more, and the same people complain about then having record profits? Like you should want corporations to have a profit so they get taxed. Oh, yeah, good point. I think what they're saying is they had record profits. They should pay some of that in taxes. But, right, they should continue to have record profits.
There's also the big complaint about corporate greed in general, right? Like, oh, your offices are too plush and you shouldn't be taking private jets everywhere and spread some of that wealth around. That's another sort of layer to that complaint.
Chris Tetrucker says, some more shekels for your lawsuit. Have you thought ever about having Jesse Lee Peterson on the Culture War podcast? He's a based black commentator. If you brought him on with opposing voice, it would be epic. We have. It might be a great show, Culture War. Someone suggested we bring on Lichtman and Nate Silver for the Culture War. That would be massive.
That'd be really cool.
However, that's a big ask. But that would be big.
You might be able to entice...
And Rich Barris.
You might be able to entice Nate Silver with some poker, because I know he's a poker guy, too.
Oh, yeah, he used to be a pro.
Yeah, something like that.
Yeah, I was tracking him in the World Series. It was fun to watch. Shout out, Nate. I was watching you play, man. I was rooting for you. And then when we were in Vegas this year, briefly during the World Series, I saw Mincy from Barstool.
Oh, sweet.
Yeah, and I know better because I play. And he was sitting right by one of the walkways. And so I'm not going to say anything to him. I'm not going to be like, yo, he's in the middle of a hand, right? He's playing the game. I'm not going to get, it's like this is the biggest game. It's the big event. And so I just watched a few hands. I was like, cool. And then I DM'd him later and I was like, yo, I was watching you play. And he was like, was that you who yelled to me? Because he was like, broke my concentration. I was like, dude, that was not me. I did not yell your name. I would not do that. But it was fun to see Mincy. Shout out. And Barstool. And yeah, actually, Nate Silver, that'd be fun. It'd be cool. It'd be amazing if we brought him to Seatown and had him play with the old retirees.
Oh yeah,
That'd be fun. Yeah, I think Nate does good work. We'll see if he's right. All right, let's go. Davey Boy says, real quick, how much will the polls go up if Trump says that he'll pardon Hunter Biden if he were to get reelected during the Trump v. Harris debate? I don't want Hunter Biden pardoned. I want Hunter Biden to win. If Hunter Biden wins an appeal to the Supreme Court on the gun charges and gets these gun forms thrown out, it's a huge two-way victory. So I'm rooting for Hunter Biden. He should not have been charged on the gun form. You guys know about this, right? Mm-hmm. For they demand you self-incriminate. The government doesn't have a right to do that. If you're caught with a weapon and in possession, I agree. You know, you get arrested or whatever, you get charged. But the idea that the government says you have to incriminate yourself to us right now, I think is wrong. If he wins on appeal and it goes to the Supreme Court on the gun charge, then they could throw out the whole thing and say the government has no right to ask people to self-incriminate. Fifth Amendment.
Biden said he wouldn't pardon his son if convicted.
Good.
I don't believe him, but that's the right thing to say.
That was specifically on the tax stuff too, I think, though. I don't know where it with the gun charge.
He said it first with the gun charge,
Okay.
and then when when Hunter pled guilty in the tax stuff, he reiterated it via Karine Jean-Pierre, which, you know, I really don't know how much he actually talks to him. I don't think anyone knows what Joe Biden's up to these days. I'm pretty sure he's still on a beach vacation as far as I'm concerned. No, I think he's back at the White House.
So it was Robert Steinhauer who said, y'all should get Nate Silver and Alan Lichtman on the Culture War podcast before the election, and Rich Barris. Yeah, that would be that would be fascinating. But I know Rich would definitely do it. Nate might be very busy or just not want to do it. But that would be cool. Actually, just having Nate Silver on to explain the forecast model and break down what he thinks would be absolutely fantastic, even if it was just him and maybe like, you know, Hannah Claire or something. We just talked to him about forecasting.
Very cool.
Because we could talk about how the polls were wrong, why they're consistently wrong. Have they been fixed now? Probably not. And what makes him think is he can forecast accurately despite this. And I think he might actually enlighten us on some things. That'd be fun. Let's go. Nathan Dyer says, Tim and crew, I'm in the delivery room with my fiance preparing to welcome my third son to this beautiful world. Please shout out and welcome Lion Dyer. Make America great again. Wow. Congratulations, sir.
Shout out Lion Dyer, third kid out. Tim's saying you don't need to pay income
God is
tax.
coming your way.
You have officially surpassed replacement rate, so you're doing the best work. I love when we get those kinds of super chats. They're my favorites.
Think about this. Imagine if every single family had 3 kids and no one paid taxes. And then you're sitting here as the bachelor being like, why am I paying taxes?
You're the only one paying tax.
Well, then I'd have 3 kids. In that case, I'd have 3 kids, at least.
You know, I do agree with you, though, that these simplistic worldview plans of like, how about we make it so that if you don't have 3 kids, you don't have to pay taxes, and you end up with corporations where they're like, marry a random woman with 3 kids to get tax exempt status, and like
You end up with Social Security.
You end up, what would happen is a corporation would say, for 10% of your yearly income, we'll marry you to this woman with 3 kids, and you save 30% in taxes, and it doesn't work the same way. So
we already have anchor babies, but now we're going to have income
babies.
Asian babies.
Even when people split up and then they share 2 families share the same 3 kids, they both claim them on their taxes, which is interesting.
And
No, the more terrifying thing is I've sat in rooms like this on Capitol Hill where this is exactly how policy is made. And it's just like, hey, what about this? Yeah, sure. Just get us a white paper.
Jeez.
Yep.
Let's go. Gage Newby says, Tim, as a 23-year-old, it doesn't surprise me my generation shift to the right after Obama's ruined our school lunches. I hear that a lot, that Michelle Obama ruined school lunch, and the Gen Z is just like, Democrats.
She made enemies. Look, she wasn't thinking ahead at all.
what did they do to the lunches?
She went on one of her, like, you have to be healthier campaigns, and I think it took away the things that people were excited for in school lunch.
Yeah, like, remember pizza?
Pizza.
You know, it was like that weird...
No crust.
Right. It was like a flatbread almost. We used to have, when I was in grade school, Super Donut. Remember that?
No.
You don't remember Super
What
Donut?
was super about it?
I don't know. It was called Super Donut. Apparently, it was like enriched, had vitamins in it. And they would heat it up, and the bag would be like inflated from the heat, and you'd open it, and they were super good. And you have it with milk. And I can't remember where I was. I was at a gas station, and they were selling Super Donut. And I was like, whoa, it's Super Donut. And then I looked, and it said, remember these from when you were a kid? We brought them back. And I was like, oh, look at that.
When I was a kid, you
where
used to
was
be
I?
able to get chips for $1, a bag of chips for $1.
Back
I was
the
in
day.
Charleston, West Virginia. That's where I was when I saw them. Yeah, Charleston, not to be confused with Charlestown, which happens all the time. It's very bad.
Sounds rough.
Yeah. All right, here we go. We'll grab some more super chats here. Let's see.
We didn't have that stuff growing up at school. We didn't have the same kind of lunches that you guys did.
What did you guys eat?
We had, and I'm not being funny about this. We had a jacket potato, a baked potato loaded with beans and cheese, and that was your lunch.
Great.
And it was wonderful. It was magnificent. It's what America's missing.
And what do you guys eat now? Butter chicken?
Still on a baked potato though.
British breakfast is the best.
I know.
I'm like American breakfast is whatever, but beans, tomato, mushrooms, and then what do you get? Blood pudding.
Oh yeah,
I love blood pudding.
I do too.
Yeah,
I really
and
do.
there are people who are like I can't stand it. I'm like, it's just like a sausage patty. It's just like a delicious little thing.
I get my buddies. They run this website where you can get it. They're from Ireland, and they will send you blood pudding like on ice.
Internationally?
It's fantastic. Yeah, it's
Really?
fantastic. Yeah,
I think you can get it out here, but like nobody eats it. But
You have to get that stuff from like a very good British import company.
Yeah.
You can't get it from just anywhere. Even some of the international stores that claim to sell, it's just not something. You have to have a good retailer for it.
Yeah.
All right, Lysandrin Stormwalker says James Earl Jones died at 93. Rest in peace, James Earl Jones. You'll be missed for your talent and your unforgettable voice. That is a legendary voice right there. But I'm actually more worried for another reason. Left and right. The far left, the far right, whatever. They're all going, James Earl Jones, what a legend. What we agreed on is dying. And that worries me about the future of culture. Look, I'm 38. You're going to have, give me the name of like a prominent comedian or personality or actor who's like more right-leaning.
Louis C.K.? Is that fair?
Shane Gillis.
No, I think Shane Gillis is probably good, but he's super popular now, and I'm hoping this is a good example of hope. Shane Gillis is largely popular in general, especially with his appearances on Kill Tony and stuff like this. Joe Rogan as well. But I'll say this: when Joe Rogan is an old man, 40 years from now, whatever, and he passes, are we going to see the same bipartisan sadness, or will the country just be a fractured state where the left is just like good riddance to a bad problem? You know what I mean?
Anti-vax lunatic finally passes away
Right.
at age, and then God forbid he is killed by something that a vaccine was able to prevent or some medicine was able to prevent, which
gets the
it
flu.
happens to a lot of people. I think the former Apple CEO didn't accept cancer medication until it was too late because they wanted to go
dude.
like a homeopathic path.
Yeah, Tim Apple. No, I'm kidding. Steve Jobs
Was
had I think he had pancreatic cancer, and so he went on an all fruit diet. Is that what happened? He went on an all fruit diet, and it made it worse.
I think half of the anti-vaxxers are critical of all mainstream science, though. So I don't think that would be like. If you got RFK Jr. in here and started talking to him about that, he wouldn't completely dismiss it. He'd be like, "Oh yeah, probably." Steve Jobs kept eating.
Here we go. Well, he should have done keto.
That's what it was.
Because
Still be with us.
the modern research is that cancer feeds off glucose, and when you switch to a ketone-based diet, I don't know if this is true. Talk to a doctor. I'm not trying to give anybody a cure for cancer, but the idea is that switching to a ketone-based diet, meaning high fat, so 120 or so grams of fat, 120 protein, and almost no carbs, the cancer can't grow. It has no sugar. So the ketones, your body runs just fine.
I like how you had to have that disclaimer, though, just in case there was somebody out there with cancer watching, being like, right,
gonna sue me.
This is it. He's got the cure right here.
Dr. Tim, he's going to tell me what to do.
Yeah, well, what's going to happen is they're going to say they're going to file a lawsuit and be like, Tim Pool told me to do this.
Medical
I was in
advice,
America.
yeah.
I forgot I was in
All
America.
right, let's read this. We got Illuminati saying Charlemagne the God said Walz was picked solely because Kamala needed to bring aboard a DEI candidate. It's funny because he's right.
Yeah, totally. She needed to comfort the white Americans.
Yep. She needed someone who was like a stodgy, silly white dude. But understand what Charlemagne's saying right there. He's telling you why they didn't pick Josh Shapiro.
Yeah, Tim, they are telling me about it.
He literally is saying they're not going to hire a Jewish guy. That's crazy. Oh, you know what we never got into, and we need to. Maybe we'll talk about this in the members only, is Candace Owens getting demonetized. That's a big story. We'll do that for the members only. So become a member at timcast.com. We'll grab a couple more super chats here. Barely a Millennial says, We Didn't Start the Fire by Fall Out Boy is like a fun sequel. Also, new Scientologist lead singer of Linkin Park is a disgrace to Chester's memory. Yikes, that's brutal.
Yeah, but
I
We
wouldn't
Didn't
call
Start
her
the
a
Fire by the Fall Out Boy
disgrace.
is non-chronological.
Oh, really? And his
Yeah.
and Billy Joel's is?
Yes.
Really?
Yeah.
I'm
It
offended.
really upset me.
Man. I wouldn't rag on what's her name, Emily something.
Is
I
the
don't know.
Lincoln Park?
Yeah. I wouldn't say she's a disgrace to Chester's memory. That's not fair. I mean, she's trying. I got no beef. You
let's
know?
see
Big
Look,
shoes
the
to
album
fill.
comes
There's
out.
no-
Be a different band. Just
Well,
do
but other
something
bands
else.
replace their lead singers and
Yeah,
stuff.
but he has. I feel like Chester has such an intense following and support, and like Linkin Park had.
Linkin Band.
I don't know what I'm talking about. Linkin Park had a specific sound that it's just hard to replicate. It would have been better to form as something else. I mean, you were saying before you feel like she's sort of mimicking his style.
Yeah.
Wouldn't it have been better to say like we miss performing together? Obviously we can't replace Chester, but we want to start giving our fans some new type of music moving forward.
I think another of the band members is also no longer touring with them. I think that was right. So they've lost 2 now. Was it Brad or was it Phoenix? And look, but here's the thing. Let's see what the album sounds like when it comes out. It comes out in November, I think. I'm personally excited about it just because, like, let's see. It's something to look forward to. I don't want to be too harsh on her, but that live singing was terrible.
Hannah Claire, it doesn't excite you as a woman seeing another woman lead a boy band with some of this iconic music?
Would Josh
You could
Shapiro have
lead.
excited you on the Democrat ticket?
A little bit, frankly. It would.
I just want to say one last thing to everybody. Okay, one last thing. It won't be for everybody, but for those that it reaches. I want you to imagine being 15 and sitting in your room, and you've got Hybrid Theory playing, and you're like just sitting there laying back and just listening to Crawling. Just take you way back. Remember those days?
I do.
Yeah. There you go. That was fun. Hybrid Theory is a great album, 2000. All right, everybody, smash that like button, subscribe to this channel, share the show with your friends. Head over to timcast.com right now. Click join us or click sign up to become a member. Support our work. And we got a members only show. We're going to talk about Candace Owens. And she got suspended and demonetized on YouTube. And so this one will be particularly interesting. So again, timcast.com. We could use your support. You can follow me on X at Timcast. Raheem, do you want to shout anything out?
TheNationalPulse.com. Get your news from there. We are like a MAGA trade publication. So anything you need to know about what's going on in MAGA world and what MAGA world is reading, TheNationalPulse.com.
Raheem, it's been very chill chatting it up. You guys could find me on Twitter at Elad Eliyahu and at Timcast News. Tomorrow I'll be covering Palestinian protests happening outside of the debate in Philly, which will be cool. A couple of Kamala Harris rallies later this week. You can send me compliments and complaints on Instagram at Barely Informed with Elad, HCB.
Yeah, definitely check out at Timcast News. You can follow Elad's work there. It's really cool to see. You can also see other work from all the SCNR writers. You can also go to scnr.com. See stuff from me, Chris Bertman, our impending father, and Chris Carr, Adrian Norman, a bunch of people. So check that out. I'm on Twitter at Hannah Claire B, and I'm on Instagram at hannahclaire.b. Thanks for everything you guys do. Have a good night.
We'll see you all over at timcast.com in about a minute. Thanks for hanging out.